Hello, everybody, and welcome to the deepest dive on Chrono Cross. This is the best, most thorough discussion about Chrono Cross on the internet, and it's coming to you via MinnMax, the place about games, friends, and getting better. I'm Ben Hansen. Thank you so much for being here. I'm joined by cohort Kyle Hilliard.
Hello.
Welcome, Kyle. Look, we don't need to unpack it all, but this is you're the rookie perspective. This is your first time going through the big old cross.
Oh, yeah, I'm crossing the cross.
Hell yeah!
I think you know when you have to, when you have to chase the animals. We'll talk more about in a bit.
Yeah.
I think that's the furthest I ever got when I originally played it.
That's understandable. You got to the Komodo, you're like, this is impossible. Okay, that's
Can't be done.
Yeah, but you might know Kyle from 1,000 things, but you might know him from the deepest dive on Chrono Trigger, which we did years ago. So it's fun to have you kind of carrying that thread. Also, we're joined by MinnMax's new contributor, one of them at least, Joe Juba. Welcome, Joe.
Hello, yes. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to do this.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. A former reviews editor for Game Informer magazine and somebody who's been texting me about doing the deepest dive on Chrono Cross for years now.
I mean, since you guys did I played along with Chrono Trigger for that deepest dive, and I almost jumped right into Chrono Cross. But even back then, the MinnMax community was all about like, we need to jump into Chrono Cross next.
Yep.
I was like, oh, if they're gonna do another deepest dive, maybe I should hold out. So like, I feel like every 6 or 8 months I text you and ask like, where are we at on that? Because I want to replay Chrono Cross.
You should ask Square when they're releasing that remaster, which has been rumored. But last but not least, we're joined by news reporter from IGN, Rebecca Valentine.
That's me.
Welcome. And she's, if you're just listening to the audio version, she is just petting the bejesus out of a cat, but a thematically appropriate one. Yes, Reb?
That's right. This is Robo. She is named after the character from both Chrono Trigger and Chrono Cross. And if you're watching and happen to see a gray cat wandering at some point, she's a little bit less likely to appear than this one, but the gray cat is named Luca.
It's beautiful. And if this video gets over 100,000 views, we will rename that cat from Luca to Poshel. So everybody, any help you can give there for sharing it with a friend would really be appreciated. But hey, thank you so much for watching this. You're probably looking at the running time of this and saying, wow, this is a long YouTube video. Yeah, it probably is. You can help support this format, the Game Club format, by going to patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. If you support us at the $5 tier, you unlock the podcast version of this discussion, the entire deepest dive on Chrono Cross, the deepest dive on Chrono Trigger, all of our other deepest dives, early access to the MinnMax show, our Patreon exclusive podcast Party Chat. There's a ton in there, so please help support us. Basically how this works, everybody, is we have collected well over 200 comments from people that are playing along in the MinnMax community, and we're going to read those off. So as we're going along, we're going to be reading their comments. If you're wondering where they're coming from, these comments are all coming from Patreon. If you support us at any tier over at Patreon, you can submit a comment and we will read your insightful thoughts on the show. But thank you so much for watching this. If you clicked on this video, look, you're already in the 1% of the 1%. I feel like us Chrono Cross fans have really got to rally together. And if you enjoy the idea of an outlet like MinnMax devoting more than an entire month of time to Chrono Cross and truly making the best, most thorough discussion about it on the internet, you can help support that by going to Patreon. We appreciate any help spreading the word, all that fun stuff. Joe, how you feeling, man?
Oh, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling really good. It's just like, like putting on an old comfy jacket when you're jumping back into a game that like you love and have played so many times. Ooh. But for me, it's been
the jacket's like a little snug and it doesn't quite fit. It's not quite how you remember it. Maybe it could be a lot better. It's not running very well.
Kyle, no. All right.
Not.
Frame rate on that coat's kind of meh.
Well, look, there's no doubt about that.
Version of the jacket you're wearing?
I'm curious, everybody's experience. So Kyle, we already shared yours. I know you're a big fan of the opening cutscene, and you watched that a bunch, right? That's your main takeaway for Chrono Cross. Does that look good back in 1999 or 2000?
And sounded good, I would argue.
Hell yeah. My experience with this game is I loved it. I've only played through it really once, but it's one of those things where I was playing it right when it came out in 2000. All of my friends were playing it. So it's one of those where like I would beat it, then go over to my friend's house, watch him play through a section, go over to another friend's house, watch him play through the section for like 8 hours straight. So I feel like I've absorbed this game more. And I remember I picked it up when our family was going on a big 2-week vacation, going out camping in the mountains. I think it was the Canadian Rockies. And I picked it up right at the beginning of the trip, which is a terrible idea. So I spent the entire car ride staring at the case, be like, get me out of this tent. I need to go home and experience Chrono Cross. GameSpot gave it a 10 out of 10. Are you kidding? But I hadn't played it since then. So it had been 22 years since I'd played this game. So it's so wild to go back to it. But Reb, what's your experience with this thing? Also, do you prefer Reb? Rebecca, I feel too.
Reb is fine for the podcast.
For the podcast. But in real life, it's nothing but Rebecca.
Well, if you're writing something, if you're saying Rebecca Valentine's going to be on the podcast, I prefer Rebecca because that's my byline.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. That's great. It's too formal. For somebody that I've kind of met once at GDC, no! I feel like Reb's too polite. Good. Okay. Anyways, what's your experience with this thing?
Very weird, maybe. So I am a late bloomer to video games. GameCube was my first console, which makes me sound younger than I am, but it's just because I happened to pick it up later than everybody else. So I missed Chrono Cross when it happened, and I picked up Chrono Trigger on the DS when they came out with the remake, and that was my first experience with it because I had heard that it was this incredible RPG, and I loved it. I loved it so much, and then me finding out that there was a sort of weird spin-off alternate universe sequel coincided with a period of time in college when I was 19, 20, where I finally saved up money and bought a used PS2 off Amazon. Beautiful. Which at that point it was very out of date. We were well into PS3, Xbox, whatever one. And I bought this PS2 and I picked up Final Fantasy VII and a couple PS1 games with a PS1 memory card, and Chrono Cross was one of them. So I had a physical copy of Chrono Cross, and so I played it through in college, and I loved it. I loved it almost as much as Chrono Trigger, and I just I'm this weird Chrono Cross stan, despite having played it when it was already very aged.
No, that's good. I like to know that you weren't just a little baby playing this for the first time and be like, well, this is my first RPG, therefore it's the best. I'd like to know that it can stand the test of time a little bit, but obviously the point of this discussion is we'll be talking a little bit more about how much it stands the test of time. And Joe, I assume you're just a nut and you've been playing this every year since the year 2000?
I actually, this is a weird one of those games for me that one thing that stands out to me about Chrono Cross is that I think it was probably the first time that I bought a game sort of on faith in the in the names, having not, I saw no coverage of this game, no reviews of it. No, I was in college. I had just finished playing Final Fantasy VIII, and I had really played a lot of Final Fantasy VIII.
Yeah.
And I was in the mood for another RPG, and I was walking around at Target and saw on the shelf Chrono Cross, and I was like, well, I already love Chrono Trigger, so that's a win. And I saw the Squaresoft logo down in the corner, and I was like, oh, Squaresoft, they make tons of games that I love. And I just bought it on faith there in Target and played it. I mean, to give you a sense of it, on my PS1 save of this game, I have all of the characters on a single save.
Yeah.
Which means that you have to play it 3 or 4 times.
At least 3, yeah.
That's amazing.
So I played a lot of it then, and I think I've replayed it once since. But it's this is actually not a game that I frequently revisit. It's been probably, at least 10 or 15 years since I've played through Chrono Cross.
Okay, perfect. I played this before Chrono Trigger. Oh, he's got the strategy guide, everybody. Too. Hell yeah.
Wow.
Hell yeah. We're going to get into all that stuff. There's a lot to unpack there. But I played this game before I played Chrono Trigger. And so I did it kind of weird and backwards there. And so a lot of people have been asking hey, can I start this if I've never played Chrono Trigger? And I'm like, absolutely. We're not going to spoil anything here. By the way, we should probably cover this. For this discussion, we're talking about everything in Chrono Cross because we're breaking it up into 4 parts for our huge Game Club discussion. So this is just the first part. So in this discussion, we're covering everything in the game up until the completion of Viper Manor. So please, everybody, no spoiling anything beyond Viper Manor. I guess including characters. I know it's going to be weird and tough because it feels like we've met half the cast already, but no big spoilers for anything beyond Viper Manor. And if you're watching this and you want to play along with us and submit comments about the rest of the game, we would love to have you. Jump over to Patreon. We'd appreciate it. So anyways, I encourage you to jump in even if you haven't experienced Chrono Trigger. But it's north of like a Xenogears to Xenosaga connection, but not crucial. But it'll color your perspective for sure. And so I'm curious to go back to it after just playing Chrono Trigger not that long ago and have all that relatively fresh and see how much I probably missed out on back in the day. Because I would read stuff and read about the connections and stuff after I played Chrono Trigger and all that stuff. But okay, quick thing. I ran a poll just to see where everybody in the community is at. Kyle, I asked, hey, for everybody playing along with the Deepest Dive in Chrono Cross, have you played it before? What percentage do you think said yes, Kyle?
Like 10.
15% of people playing along have played it before. 9% of people have played it but haven't finished it. 31.6% of people playing along have never played it at all. So there's a lot of fresh perspectives. So that's why I want to be very light on spoilers. What's that, Kyle?
It really doesn't surprise me, honestly. Like, I feel like when it came to PS1 RPGs, it was all Final Fantasy. Like, that's all anyone ever knew. Like, I heard so much about Chrono Trigger and played it on like an emulator. That was like my first experience with it. And it was like years later, I was like, wait, they did a sequel? Like I missed it, you know?
It felt like such a huge deal for me back in the day, but that was like peak JRPG love. And yeah, GameSpot giving it a 10. I was completely on board. But then I looked it up. It turns out it has sold 1.5 million copies, which I understand the game industry has grown so much since then, but that seems ridiculously low. Like, just for a frame of reference, and my favorite frame of reference, Tamagotchi Life, the Nintendo Switch port of that, sold more than Chrono Cross has ever sold.
I wrote something about this recently. I think Chrono Trigger did like 2 million in the first like year or two or something, like just by itself. So just for comparison,
yeah,
for its predecessor, yeah, that's pretty small.
It's so small. It
feels like Final Fantasy 8's release would be the better comparison, like 8 or 9, like PS1 RPG, you know, for like whether it was a huge success or not.
Yeah, that's right. It is so weird, but it is. I mean, that's why we have to stick together. If you love Chrono Cross, we need you for the Deepest Dive, everybody.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't help either that like until now, I mean, at launch, I mean, you can compare those figures as much as you want, but there hasn't really been a good way to play it since now or until now.
Yeah.
I guess it was on PS Classics for a while, but I don't know how many people are actively like scrolling through the library of PS Classics looking like it's not surfacing Chrono Cross. We're not getting this big, hey, Chrono Cross is back like we did with Chrono Trigger on DS and PC.
I have it installed on my PS TV right now.
PS TV, hell yeah.
Like it was Vita, right? Like that was in the PS3. You could get it, but it wasn't like a big deal. It was just like in the library.
Yeah, totally. When they were talking about, shutting down the PlayStation 3 stores and all that stuff, that was one of the first things I went back to do. I was like, okay, I just want to make sure that I have a copy of Chrono Cross, not knowing the remaster was coming up, and I'm glad I have that original version as well. This game, written and directed by Masato Kato, who is the writer for Chrono Trigger, and this is the big directorial debut, I would imagine. I mean, I know he wrote a little bit for Final Fantasy VII, he wrote a little bit for Xenogears, but this is such a big, unique, bold move, and it's a spiritual sequel to Chrono Trigger, very specifically not Chrono Trigger 2. It's a tough one to even talk about, right? But
it's like an alternate universe sequel. So it's a sequel in like some sense.
Right. It's a funky
alternate universe spin-off, I think is.
Yeah.
Well, the way it was always pitched to me was like Chrono Trigger is about time travel and Chrono Cross is about alternate dimensions.
Right.
Like I don't know if that's true, right? Like it seems like it's leaning that way, but like
subtle hints.
That's kind of like how it was pitched to me. It's like you like Chrono Trigger's time travel. This is different dimensions. It was kind of like how it was. I'd read about it early on.
Yeah. Chrono Trigger is like fundamentally asking the question, what if you could change the past to influence the future? And Chrono Cross is, you get dialogues like this in the section of the game we played. Chrono Cross is fundamentally asking, what if there were other possibilities for how your life could play out?
Right. By the way, frame of reference.
Like, what if you died?
Right.
I do love, this is maybe getting a little too in the weeds right away, but like, I love how, existentially thoughtful everyone in Arnie Village is early in the game, right?
Oh
to
my
sort
God,
of
yes.
To sort of set the tone of possibility that they're talking about. Like you go talk to that fisherman and he's like, man, sometimes I just think about what my life might be. There might be another version of me. So if you ever meet another version of me, please give them this shark tooth necklace.
I am totally with it. That's like the huge thing, I think, from replaying it for this section. Is like, oh, I didn't remember this game being as philosophical and dark and weird. And just, it feels like a game written by somebody going through a midlife crisis. Even just like, you know, that person in the cafe, like, hey, I'm the spunky waitress. Yeah, I write a little poetry. Yeah, it goes like this. Truly, what is the meaning of this dark, cruel world? And it's like, oh my God, cool it, lady, please.
But I mean, I think it's so smart because it really sets the stage for the concepts that the game is playing with, right?
Yes.
It's like priming the pump of your mind to be like, you're going to be wanting to think about this kind of stuff as we get going. But it just has this funny side effect of making it seem that like everyone in this little tiny coastal village is like really into thinking about existence.
But I love it too because it kind of sets up what Chrono Cross fundamentally is, like in a weird meta-narrative sense. Like, what if there were an alternate universe for what happened after Chrono Trigger? And it's telling you in the opening hour what this game is. And I feel for the people who wanted a Chrono Trigger 2 and didn't get it. I really do. And I think I have a little less sympathy for that perspective because of how I played it so many years later, knowing there was not a Chrono Trigger 2. Like, it was pitched to me as a weird spinoff. But I kind of love that every character is just telling you, hey, this is not Chrono Trigger 2. This is something else immediately.
There's a weird note from that one NPC who said that directly, yeah. Ty McWhorter writes in and they say, I've been very impressed with the NPC's dialogue. The using water as an analog for rebirth / the river of time themes presented by the NPCs gives a spiritual flair that puts this a couple of notches above most RPGs. Also returning to Arnie to see how Surge's death has rippled across the village and culminating with the discovery that the monument where you carved Surge and Lena forever in your world is now your tombstone is a very distinctly It's a Wonderful Life vibe. Where are Zuzu's pedals? Yeah, I mean, okay, there's, I feel like we're tiptoeing into this, the deepest part of the deepest dive by talking about It's a Wonderful Life and everything. But okay, we should probably start this the most formal way that we start all of our deepest dives. Rebecca, are you ready for this?
Yeah.
All right, we received over 200 comments over on Patreon. Oh, by the way, real quick before we get to that, Brain Freeze over on Twitch watching us live points out that Final Fantasy VIII, Kyle, at this point, had sold 7 million copies. 7 million copies by 2001.
Ooh.
So just for a frame of reference for what we're working
Chrono
with.
Cross was not. It was sold poorly.
Well,
and
there's
also something interesting. There's something interesting there too, because I think that there's a similarity, another similarity between FF8 and Chrono Cross in that like they are follow-ups to absolutely definitive RPGs in a way that maybe set unfair expectations for them. So you could look, I think Final Fantasy VIII compared to 7 in terms of sales figures was probably, you could look at that as a disappointment. But if that's a disappointment and Chrono Cross is that far below, I guess I can understand why Square Enix might want to like test the waters with a remaster before going in on a new Chrono game at some point. But
yeah. Anyways, Rebecca, we had so many people submit comments over on Patreon. We like to start these things by having a little game, which we call Most Common Comment. What do you think was the most common comment, the most recurring theme or comment from the hundreds and hundreds of people submitting comments over on Patreon? What was the thing that people were talking about the most for this section of the game, do you think?
The music is great.
Great guess. Joe, what do you think? Most common comment?
That was going to be my guess. I think my second place guess would be how awesome the intro is.
Okay, solid. Kyle, what do you got?
Complaining about the performance.
Honestly, before going into this, I thought for sure it was going to be music and performance of the remaster. Very few comments about the performance, like minuscule, which is amazing. I love it because like plenty of other places are talking about that. We'll talk about it.
I will say, like, if I'm making jokes about it, it's like for our purposes, it's not really super relevant. It's not like the game's unplayable or anything.
No.
Right.
It's just like it's just kind of slow sometimes, which is annoying.
Yeah, we took the deepest dive into Cyberpunk. At this point, we're battle tested. We can do anything. Okay, most common comment. It was the music. But it was a lot closer than I thought. I think coming in at number 2 was people talking about the opening, kind of the in media res thing and having the random party member in there. Number 3 was people complaining about being annoyed by how to recruit characters. Number 4 was, and we'll get into it, a fierce debate, pro and con Poshel, all over the place. And then another one that was recurring a lot was people talking about the combat was really tricky and weird, and trying to wrap their minds around.
And annoying.
Kyle, hey Kyle Hilliard, this is just like a private message for you. Are you receiving my audio DM? Kyle, we're trying to like court and celebrate Chrono Cross and all of its fans, and we're trying to like make love to the ears of every Chrono Cross fan on the internet.
Right.
And you're
right.
like,
so don't be negative.
You're like conveying some negative bummer vibes so far, bro.
I'm playing into my role. This is
Right.
I'm responding. I've called you. I'm leaving you a message right now. I'm just performing as my character is supposed to be.
Okay, cool.
Kyle, we're going to need you to take about 10 steps backwards and then close the door.
Okay.
Just listen to Time Scar like 5 more times. You'll feel better.
Then come at me.
Okay.
Oh boy. Well, should we just, here we go, Kyle. Fork has a question for you, Kyle. Just really get to the core of it. Fork writes in on Patreon and asks, hey, have any of you ever ran like the wind as your laughter echoed under cerulean skies?
Not in the last few years, no.
Okay, there it is.
That's sad.
Yeah, look alive, dude. Samon writes in and says, I played Chrono Cross when it was first released, and it ended up being my favorite game of all time. I was just a wee lad back then, but now I'm an adult who has since played and reviewed hundreds of things. The thing is, 15 minutes into Chrono Cross, I realized it's not the nostalgia crushing reality check I was cynically fearing. As a matter of fact, I still love it as much as the day I found it. What kind of sorcery is this? Can you already pinpoint why this game is so damn special? Look, Kyle, there's going to be room for criticism. There's no doubt. I mean, I don't want this just to be ass-kiss rodeo for Chrono Cross.
I've enjoyed my time with it so far. I am genuinely playing it up.
Yeah, but I think it's an interesting discussion of like, what is it about this game that feels so special? And even from this section, I'm curious if anything pops for anybody else. But it just, I think it's, I'm sorry for using this modern phrase, but it's just such a distinct vibe. And I love the idea of them taking such a big swing for a sequel, quote unquote, to Chrono Trigger of like, okay, it's disconnected, completely different battle system, completely different art style. Let's get Akira Toriyama out of here. We don't have to pay him anymore, please. And just the fact that it's so bizarre and it feels like a bold new IP while still having some connections to one of the greatest games of all time, which, I mean, can you imagine that? If you release one of the greatest games of all time, then it's like, yeah, we're going to kind of capitalize on that by making something completely different. And I love it. And it's impossible not to talk about the music for a big reason, I think, for why this game is so special for so many people. But I mean, based on what we've played so far, Rebecca, do you have just thoughts on what's so unique and special about this thing?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of summed it up for me a little bit. It's weird. It's really weird.
Yes.
And I mean, if you know me and the kinds of games I like, I am like firmly of the opinion that the vast majority of games do not get weird enough.
Yeah.
Like Chrono Trigger is like kind of a very good, even if it's not your favorite game or you don't think it's the best game of all time, Chrono Trigger is a very good encapsulation of like the closest thing we get to like an ideal video game, right? Like it checks all of the correct boxes. It's really, really good. Chrono Cross is not that. Chrono Cross is really messy and weird. And I can't get over the fact that this team made like this very close to perfect thing and then said, you know what? We want to make some weird art now and we're just going to do what we want and not aggressively try to follow it up with more of the same but better. Like that is so cool and daring to me. And I love games that are like that. I love games that examine the relationship between like it's having a conversation with the audience and with itself about what it means to make a game, what a storyline and a relationship with a predecessor actually can be. And yeah, it feels very artful and thoughtful and bizarre. And I want more weird video games that swing for the fences like that. Yeah,
it's heartfelt in a way. And I'd love to like compare the credits to see how much of the development team is from Chrono Trigger. Because I guess it's largely the Xenogears development team, I think, is directly the one that then shifted over. And there's a fascinating split within Square.
Wait, was it pre Xenogears or post?
Post Xenogears,
right?
Yeah,
because it's a late generation game.
Yeah,
right?
released in September or August of 2000 in the States at least. Okay. So yeah, pretty late here. But it's interesting to think of like that split of like, okay, Takahashi also, Tetsuka Takahashi worked on Chrono Trigger and then he split off and made Xenogears. Then he's still on the Xeno track with, Xenoblade and all that stuff. And he also has such a deep connection to Mitsuda for the composition and for the music. And then also, then we got Masato Kato focusing on Chrono Cross and carrying that forward. But Yeah, I'm curious to see how much of that team carried forward, because obviously it's like, okay, new art director. They brought in a character designer who had come from, I think, the manga and anime scene to bring a bold, unique visual vision for what they're going for and all this stuff. But Joe, softball to you, man. What do you think special about Chrono Cross?
Oh, man. I mean, so like you mentioned the music, and I mean, I am not, I'll leave that to other people to talk about, because I'm not someone who has a great vocabulary for talking about like what about music appeals to me, other than to say like I am really into the music in this game.
It's ridiculous.
But for me, like I think Reb made some great points, because like the weirdness and the zaniness of this game goes so far. For me, the biggest area that I appreciate that is in the party selection, because like they have, so yeah, this game has 45 characters that you can recruit at the end of the day.
That's too many.
And it's, but like,
Too many.
it is so many. And unlike a game, like, okay, so there's the, like Konami's Suikoden series, still
Yeah.
like, you know, that they have 108 characters that you recruit in that, but like, those aren't all party members that you like, you know, equip and put in your party at any time, right? 45 characters is so many. And if you're sitting there thinking, that's a lot, there must be some like really bad ideas, there must be some chaff in there, you are absolutely right.
Hey, whoa.
There are some ridiculous and terrible characters in there, but I love the fact that they made it in. They made it in anyway. That's like,
Great.
Yeah, I read today that apparently one of the original ideas is like, oh, they wanted to make an RPG where you could recruit any NPC into your party. And it feels like an interesting dialing back of that, where it's like, okay, we still have way too many characters packed in, but at least it feels like everyone's important in this world and there's not that many characters, because it turns out everyone can be very important and join you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, we'll
Watch
probably
Dogs
talk about this
or-
on a later episode, but it seems like it resulted in certain plot lines that were originally supposed to be in Chrono Cross getting cut, which is very sad. But yeah.
We should probably dive.
Also, real quick on the subject of characters, like I feel like I've missed a ton already. Like just seeing people tweeting
Actually
about it.
haven't.
Well,
I know there's at least two, because I saw Hanson, you were walking around with that weird animal, and I was like, that guy, I could have that guy in my team, like on one of your streams. And then someone shared that nice screenshot of like where you walk between the towers and there's the big moon.
yeah.
And they had like a person with them. I was like, who the hell's that?
oh,
This
Kyle,
guy?
you're blowing
I
it.
have a sword guy, like what's it called? Someone who
Pierre?
God, why can't I think of
you
the
got
word?
Pierre.
Pierre.
Kyle, you're the most Pierre guy I've ever met in my life.
This game does a lot of these characters. Does everyone kind of talk like is their accent written out?
Yes,
Oh,
every
boy.
single last one of them.
It's a lot.
Right.
This is one of the this is one of my favorite. It's one of my favorite things about this game, because when they're talking, like they have 45 characters that they need to work out. But so in a time before voice acting, in a time on PS1 with a lot of like polygonal character models and animations and stuff, like how do you convey a lot of personality with
Right.
so many characters? And the fact that it's also too much like program. I was reading about this years ago, but if I'm remembering correctly, it's like it's too much data to program exactly like, you know, like 45 different specific pieces of dialogue for someone. So like if, you know, Serge falls off the dock and the character says, Serge, you fell off the dock, they're not going to like individually program different accents and everything for every character. So it's basically just a filter that base text gets pushed through and then altered depending on the characters.
So it's just like, oi, you fell off the dock, mate. And just like that type of thing. We're just like, okay, we'll
yeah,
just add
exactly.
this.
It is,
Okay,
so it'll be like, oh, if Harl is saying it, then it automatically alters the phrase to be like, oh, Serge, you fell off the dock.
Weird. Okay.
Or, you know, like when if you're talking to like Korcha, I'm sure that they have a thing where it's like, okay, if he's saying a word that ends with T and is followed by the word U, then you just capitalize, you mash them together and capitalize CHA.
Right.
Like all of the characters' accents follow very defined rules so that they can really have one script that's just like modified through different, basically like, different speakers depending on who's in the party.
Yeah, there's something
That's cool.
weirdly nostalgic about just the simpler version of that from JRPGs of this era, and this is kind of the ultimate version of it. But back in the day when it's like, okay, we want characters to laugh, but they all have to have a different laugh, a different style of laugh. And it carries through in this game, but like everybody laughs different, right? The cook's like, cha ha ha, cha ha 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 ha. And this is just like the ultimate version of that. Like, okay, we can't have distinguishing laughs for everybody. What if we have distinguishing accents for everybody under the sun? And there's moments where I was playing this where I was like, okay, Kid is Australian in my mind, but is she more like Cockney, or is it just, is it a messy Australian? If you're from Australia, please let us know. Is it just straight up all the phrases
How much
you
are
say?
you saying oi in your normal?
I guess that's what I'm wondering. It's like,
Is that like every other sentence?
because there are moments, there are stretches here where I'm like, oh, is she just a little bit of everything? A little bit Cockney, a little bit Australian? I can't really get a read on it, but no, she says mate, so she must be Australian, right? That's locked into my mind. Who knows?
I always had her as Cockney in my head.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I think it's very unclear,
Okay.
which is part of why, like, again, messy and weird. I love it in the messy and weirdness.
It is. It is certainly weird.
She says bugger at some point.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
I was gonna say, Kyle, I think you actually haven't missed that many. I think you can. There's some setup you can do for a couple characters that you can't get yet, but I think like you can have a max aside from Surge. I think right now, like maybe a max of like 5 additional party members if you did everything precisely. I think is where we're at. So you're okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I missed Poshul. Which I feel like a fool because I love Poshul. I was like, I get Poshul in the first village. Like I know I have to do this.
Is that
and
an
I just
animal?
Yes, the pink dog,
The
the one you were
beautiful
seeing.
pink dog.
I love Poshul. I think Poshul is very stupid in just the most wonderful way.
Rebecca, I am absolutely with you.
I forgot that you're locked out of like because there's like two moments where you can possibly get Poshul in the beginning. One is like immediately in Arnie Village when you start out, and the other one is if you tell Kid no the first time she has to join you,
Yes.
then Lena and Poshul both join you in another Arnie. And I never tell Kid no. I always tell Kid yes. It's just spiritually what I have to do. I want to say yes to Kid. But yeah, I forgot to pick up Poshul before I transitioned over, so I didn't get her even though I love her.
That's devastating. Fred Dinovo writes in on Patreon. He said, "Where are my Poshul pals at? Whoa, we got you, Fred. I'm all in Poshul because I love any dumb, weird character in a JRPG.
Yes.
I will always gravitate towards it. Then again, I forgot how brutal it is to read Poshul's dialogue. It truly
Terrible.
sucks.
I can't like
It's absurd.
yeah. Like I don't care that Poshul is a or I always call her Pashul, but I don't know.
Like
Anyway,
Unclear.
but like for me, Pashul is like I like it doesn't matter how big and cute or whatever she is. It's like I have to read that dialogue, and there is a lot of dialogue.
Yeah.
And it is unbearable. My favorite part about that character is when you have her with you and Karsh kicks her off the cliff.
Yes.
Oh no.
Yes, Uncle Longfellow wrote in about that. About anyone else recruit Poshul before Cape Howell and watching horror as Pepper punts him off the cliff before the boss fight. It's traumatizing. Poshul comes back. Mick Manga writes in and says, "I'm loving my time with the game so far. It's been 5 years since I last beat Chrono Cross. I'm using Poshul and Lena for the whole playthrough. Poshul's dialogue is the best. Poshul gave us one of gaming's greatest lines. Forgive me for this, it's the way it's written.
Let's hear it.
Do you think Lena spontaneously combusted?" Where it's just a mess. Ryan McGinnis writes in and says, "Can we talk about Poshul?"
Wow, a lot of Poshul opinions.
Yeah, I recruited it before leaving the village, and they've been with me the entire game so far. Poshul's dialect is super annoying. It talks like it has a lisp. It's believable because it's a dog, I guess, and it has like a fat, slobbery tongue, but I have to read it out loud for it to make sense phonetically. Yes, I need another teammate ASAP so I can kick this dog to the curb.
One of the reasons why I love Poshul is because you are theoretically supposed to get her immediately in Arnie, like before you have literally anyone else, before you have Kid. Yep. And it sets the tone of this game so well because you have to find like a Hecarim bone underneath a bed and then give it to her. And you like find it theoretically. I mean, I didn't find it because I'm stupid and didn't look for it,
fine.
even though I love Poshel and should know better.
Right.
But you find it under this bed and you're like, oh, an item to give to an NPC for a quest, right? Like, this is a quest I should be doing. I'll get a reward. And the reward is the dog comes with you. And that just immediately sets this tone of, wait, the dog is a party member? This is not an important... Why is the dog coming? And then you actually get like Kid and like maybe Guile or other somewhat important characters later, but the whole time this dog is with you. Like, what? Why?
I love it that Poshel is so stupid. Like, you try talking to her and she's like, I'm not interested. That's fine. You go about your adventure. And then you just present one bone and then suddenly it's like, we're ride or die, Surge. Like, Poshel's just like with you the rest of the game. It's so
We love her. The only thing that tops that for me in that section of the game in terms of party members is the weird like straw voodoo guy that you get,
Hell
which I actually did.
Mojo.
Yeah, which is similar in that you pick up an item. The guy you mentioned before,
yes.
The guy who's like, oh, if you ever meet another me, give them this shark tooth necklace. You meet another him and you give him the necklace, and then his weird little straw man god comes to life and joins your party.
That is one of my...
I didn't activate Mojo, but I did write down a note that was like the creepiest thing. Like, just this guy worshiping this straw doll in his basement. It was definitely where I saw the tone change.
Yes.
Like, this gets dark.
Yes,
and
the music
unsettling.
hits so hard right when you go in. There's like boom. It's just like this weird tune, and I love it. It's such a weird thing because then even talking to his family upstairs, and their tone is very much like, yeah, I don't know what happened. Basically, this kid died in town like 10 years ago, and our dad became like a religious zealot because of that, and he's obsessed with worshiping a bundle of straw in the basement. And you're right. It's perfect for the tone of Chrono Cross, where then you can just recruit Mojo, who's just like the god to this guy. And it's like, all right, see ya. It just Mojo. I think Mojo even has a line where he says something like, hey, man, you got to do something more with your life than just
You're a creep.
Yes.
You are a creep.
Yes.
I'm leaving.
Yes. All right. See ya. And then Mojo's he's my best bud. Like the way that he has this little shake when he casts spells and he like shakes his butt in the air. It's so, I love Mojo. And I love that even like when you run into like a certain blacksmith later on, is it Zappa? Is that his name? I forget.
I think so.
Yeah. But he's even like, hey, wait a minute. And he like looks at Mojo and he's like, that nail pierced through you is the finest craftsman work. It's like, oh God. I love that Mojo just like keeps coming back. Or even you run into like a scarecrow, like I guess, what's it called? You practice attacking on it.
A little training dummy.
Training dummy. Yeah. There's that moment of like, if you have Mojo in your party, he goes up to you, he's like, wait, is this my long lost brother? No, I guess not. It's just like this complete throwaway.
Never mind. Okay.
All right, sure, Mojo. You got it, dude.
Yeah. I want to back up 1 second and
please.
tell one last Poshel story.
Yeah.
Because every time I get very excited when you first start the game and you're in that dragon fortress or whatever.
Yeah.
And the elevator opens and you get to see who's in your party for that section, right? And when I first started the remaster here, the gate opened and it was freaking Poshel.
Yeah, baby.
And so then I reset.
Why?
And started
what does it
again.
matter?
And as if karma is coming to bite me in the butt, the second time it was Van.
How did you know that resetting would get you a new party member? Because the first time I played, I don't remember who I had the first time I played, but I remember thinking, oh, this is someone very significant.
Totally. Yep. But I think it works because I love that like when you then recruit that person, it has like an extra ounce of weight. Like, well, I remember you from this pivotal moment in the story in the beginning. So yeah.
Wait, so you guys are talking about the in media res opening?
Yep.
It's random who that.
It's random the third person. Yep.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I think it's like a set pool. Like there's some characters that can't be. I think, but it's like a set pool, Who did everybody have?
My guy was completely forgettable. I couldn't even tell you what he looked like. So
you'll see him again.
That moment.
You'll see him again and you'll love him.
He just looked like a dude. Like he didn't look like, he wasn't like, I would have remembered Poshel or like a straw guy, but he was just like
Kyle,
a guy.
if you're coming into this deepest dive saying that some of Chrono Cross's characters are forgettable,
some of Chrono Cross's characters are just guys.
They're just dudes.
They're just some guys. Yeah. I had Doc.
I had Doc too.
Okay.
Speaking of random guy, he's up there.
Yeah, when Kyle said it was just a guy, I was like, it's probably Doc.
I gotta go look this up.
So on my third try, so when I first played the game years ago, I have no idea who I had. But like when I after I reset twice to get rid of Paschal and get rid of Van, it gave me Greco. And I'm like, I can live with Greco.
Greco's fun.
Yeah, you seem like a Greco. He feels like a shadow relative from Final Fantasy VI. Like, I can see you being on board with him.
Greco's great too because he's so distinctive. Like, I actually can't remember if you run into him already or if you run into people who talk about him.
Oh, really?
At this point in the game. Yeah, there's some people in Termina.
He's recruitable.
What?
At this point?
No.
Oh, no, not
at this
yet.
point.
Not yet. Yeah.
But where I'm going with this is after you figure out, okay, Paschal's recruitable, Mojo's recruitable, you start looking for weird guys when you're running around, and you can immediately recognize any weird recruitable guys by 1, they're weird, and 2, they have an accent when you talk to them.
Yes.
And so you're able to put the pieces together. Like by now, we've actually met 10, 12 recruitable characters from down the line. We just haven't been able to do it yet.
Yeah, basically, anybody with a name, especially when you get to Viper Manor, it's like, oh, I forgot. This is just like a fiesta of future party members all hanging out in Viper Manor together. It's really weird.
Yeah, though it's fun because so many of them have 2 versions of themselves between the 2 worlds, and so later on it becomes this dance of, okay, which one?
Right.
I do also love the fake out that they give you. It's a perfect balance of if a character has a portrait, it's not just a name, but if they have a drawn portrait, it has you thinking I wonder if I can recruit that character. But I feel like it's probably a 80-20 split or something. So it's if there are lots of characters who have portraits or just enough that you can't always bet on it. You can't always be oh, this character has a portrait, so I'm definitely going to be able to recruit them.
Right.
So it's enough to keep you on your toes. I like that.
Yeah.
Danielle wrote in talking about how cool it is that third-party members random in the beginning. Let's see. Oh, we have Ivan Caulfield live on Twitch saying, just here to say that Poshul is the only JRPG character who's worse than Kate Sith. They're certainly related. Now, look, to be clear, Kyle doesn't know who that is yet, so don't talk about that character. Don't spoil anything from other games. Okay, we had, Alexander Sheck had a great take saying, it's cool to see that the theme of parallel realities is realized in gameplay this early on in the game with the random third-party member in the opening. I was like, oh, that's an interesting idea. But Alexander says, and it's totally a touch you would only ever appreciate when playing through for a second time or talking to a friend about the game. That's true. I guess that is a very cool touch.
Yeah, I think you get that early on too, with Lena, because Lena won't join you in Home Arnie.
Right.
She's a character with a portrait. She seems like she's a childhood best friend. She seems like a shoo-in for party member.
Yep.
But you can't get her until you get her other version.
That's confusing. Okay, so here we go. We got Gmax Theorin. No, I love it. Gmax Theorin writes in and says, I'm really struck by the level of consequences already being presented for seemingly minor choices. I instantly said yes to Kid joining as the party, and I assumed it was a classic JRPG non-choice, only to learn that I had locked myself out of 2 additional characters by doing so. And then Thwip writes in saying, I actually ended up restarting my game about an hour and a half in. When Kid asked to join my party, I of course said yes, only to find out that this meant Lena would never join my party. This really seems almost like a punishment to the player for just making a logical choice, especially since Kid joins you later if you refuse her the first time. Yeah.
On that topic of just saying yes, I think it was Lena, talking to Lena, and she was like, do you remember what you promised me? And I was just like, well, I don't want to be a jerk. Because if I say no, I'm going to come off as a jerk. So I just said yes. Just to I don't actually know what I promised you, but I'm going to tell you yes. And then it was like, okay, great. I was like, did I screw something up here?
No. That was the right move, Kyle. You did the right thing.
Okay, all right. Well, be nice.
I actually like that moment with Lena, too, because she had that line where she goes, hey, do you think 20 years from now we're going to remember this moment? And I was realistic about it because I role play all my RPGs. So I was like, no, of course, 20 years from now. But I loved it. It wasn't damning. It was kind of like a beautiful moment where she goes, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. And I think there's something kind of nice about that. I was like, oh, that's such a good, classy move instead of just saying, how dare you, boyfriend on the beach? You should remember everything. It's like, oh, yeah. It turns out this game is about the grand scope of time and perspective here. So we can appreciate that.
I do want to say that I think it's a little messed up that Serge is essentially cheating on his girlfriend with the alternate universe version of her, and everyone's sort of okay with that and doesn't really mention how weird that is.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I do think it's telling what I remember and what I forget based on playing this game 22 years after the fact. And it's one of those things like Lena, 0. I'm just flatlining from my memory of Lena. Does anybody remember Lena? Does it?
Yeah.
I've never recruited her because I always say yes to kid.
Okay, yeah, I get it.
That's a reference to Chrono Trigger, right? Isn't that like the Lena Bell or something? Or is that...
That's
An excellent question, Kyle.
Oh, okay. I
Keep that in mind.
Ah, interesting.
Just put that in the back of your head.
Spencer Rotine writes in and says, so Lena's the main villain of the game, right? Her first quest for you is to beat an entire family of Komodo dragons to death with a boat paddle, then peel their scales off the corpses so she can make a necklace from their flesh? Huge baddie energy.
Red flags all around.
Yeah, she even specifically states she will only accept scales that you acquired through brutal murder, not any that are given to you. And then Ty McWhirter says, he replies to that comment, he said, I didn't think about it much until I talked to no one. Wait. Okay, I didn't think about it much until I talked to one in the alternate world. I went out to the beach and killed talking animals and their mother for a necklace. Well, look, she's a very particular fashionista in that world, I think. You got to accept it. Okay, I feel like we're getting to a biggie here that we should just go to, but not too much of a biggie. Let me see if I can find it. Jay Fizor writes in and says, I've been really torn between using a guide or not. Since the game has so many different characters to get depending on where you go and who you interact with. I played through the game once before when it came out, but don't remember most of the secrets. Using a guide makes it a thin line between just enjoying the game and going through a checklist of things. And then Alex Smith says, yeah, the biggest challenge for me has been letting go of worrying about missing things. I'm totally with you. I had the great fortune of like streaming the first couple hours of this game, and so Twitch chat helping me out for remembering all these specific things about how to get Poshul, how to get Mojo. That seems crucial, but I know, Joe, you're a very meticulous player, but if I may press a message forward, it's just, hey, everybody, it's okay. You're going to miss some characters. It's fine. I think it's better than staying glued to a guide this entire time. Joe, you seem to be on the complete opposite end of that spectrum.
No, well, if it's your... I don't know. I guess it gets tricky because at some point you're telling someone how to enjoy their game, right? So it's like for a player like me, I know that I enjoy it more when I play it with a guide, right? Like I enjoy that checklist sense, and also I've played through this game so many times, so it's like it's not like I am like this time through. It's not like I'm ruining any surprises for myself or anything. For me, it's more of that like completionist angle. So. If you are also that kind of player who really, gets a charge out of that completionist angle, like I don't think there's anything wrong with guide. What I would say is if you are the kind of player who actively doesn't like using guides, it's totally fine to not use one.
Yeah.
It's totally fine. Like there are characters you'll miss, and that's fine. Like we said, a lot of the characters suck and you're not really missing a lot. So like, yeah. Like if you don't have Poshul, you'll probably be thankful for.
Well, no, you should probably restart. Yeah, you should probably restart your game. I think we're all in agreement. You need the springy bounce sound every time it's jumping around. Joe, not only do I have Poshul, I run around as Poshul. That is my default main person in the party. Need as much Poshul as possible. I want to hear everything.
I think what's very freeing for me, because I thought about, I like checked a guide at one point, was like, you know what, I don't need to do this, because you absolutely cannot get every character on one playthrough.
Totally.
Like we have already run into one branching choice, which is in Termina, where there's 3 characters. You basically have to pick a guide to take you to Viper Manor, and you can pick one of 3 characters, and whichever character you pick, you can't get the other 2. Like you're just stuck with that guy.
Yes.
And so you basically have to do a new game plus and get the ones that you miss every time. And there's other branching choices coming up that are like that will lock you into specific sets of characters. And so just thinking about that, I'm like, I'm not going to play this a second and third time to get everything. I'm free.
Yeah, totally. I think that's a huge detail. It's not like you can completely 100% this on one time through. And also, I guess I don't remember what the difficulty is like later in the game, but you're not going to be made or completely broken by having one character. It might make things slightly easier, unless I'm misremembering things, Joe. Like you don't need to worry about, I missed the most powerful character and now I'm beating my head against the wall.
There is one, like Reb was talking about, there's a choice coming up that splits a couple sets of characters.
Yeah.
And I will say that is generally true However,
Oh,
there's
no.
a choice coming up that breaks my heart every time. Because there is right after this stopping point, right?
Yeah.
Players are going to be faced with a choice that, for me, one of my favorite characters, the only way you can get that character is to do the thing that you feel like you absolutely should not do.
Interesting tease. Okay.
I don't know what character this is. I know what you're talking about, but I don't know what character. We should talk.
Yeah. Well, we can talk after the recording. Yeah. So I guess I don't think you. I think that character is the only one that there is like kind of a story thing that I feel like you might be missing out on if you don't.
Yeah. I got you.
Gotcha. Time. Sure.
Not to get too far ahead of ourselves. I say, like, with that one exception, I think that, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay. Ty McWhorter writes in and says, initially, I was frustrated by the opportunity of missing party members, but now I realize it's a meta application of the theme. Key decisions by the player shape Surge's path. Only by stepping into alternate worlds, save files, can we see the other lives. This game has layers, people. Hell yeah. So you see, Kyle, you don't need to feel guilty. You're just like, you're living a version of your reality, which is just worse than ours. So,
what if there was another you out there who picked different party members and had a totally different experience?
And he was
You'll
really...
never know.
Maybe they're playing it on PlayStation 4.
But
no, I'm like, it wasn't so much that I was like, oh no, I missed it. It was more like, oh, I'm surprised I missed people already because I thought I was being kind of thorough, but like, I am totally like, maybe looking for a guide for like little puzzly things if I get stuck, but like I'm totally gonna make choices based on my emotion and see who I can get based on.
I think that's the right way to go.
I'm trying to like play it without looking at too much stuff, you know.
Yeah. Well,
but I am absolutely leaning on the sort of bonuses of the remaster of like fast forwarding and auto battling and stuff like that. Like that, I was like at the very beginning, I was like, maybe I'll try to do this like purist, you know. But it was like 2 fights in, I was like, so how do I turn on auto battle? Because that seems really nice.
Yeah, big time. Hey, are you do you have you met Skelly, Kyle? Did you do that?
Skelly.
I have his head.
Yes.
Right? The clown. And I found the person who was asking about it, and
his
I presented
grandma?
the head to them, and they were like, why are you showing me this? Like, so I'm like kind of stuck there, I think, maybe. It's funny because you guys know so much and I know so little. So it's like, I thought that's what I was supposed to do, but it doesn't seem like that's what I was supposed to do.
You're fine.
Just emphasizing that this character is a skeleton that is also a clown.
Yes.
Like, just hammering that home real quick before we
did
go on.
speed past that.
I forgot.
Thank you for circling back on that.
I remember Skelly being later in the game. I forgot that you like pick up the head, and it's that weird thing of like, okay, you can use the heavy skull by hitting basically square, you know, and it's like a key item, which is how you get potional, the bone. So remember that, everybody, you can use key items. But I forgot that, Skelly is with you for so long. And like his grandma is like, oh, if only I could see my grandson one more time. And then you show her.
My grandson's a clown.
Yeah. And you show her the skeleton and she's like, get the hell out of here. I don't know what this monster is. It's so sad. But I already, I don't know if it's for all the different paths, but I already found another body part for Skelly, which was, I think, what is it called? The heavy scapula or something. And then when you find body parts, Skelly talks a little bit more. And it's a really sad story about where he's just talking about like being mocked by his peers for his looks, and he couldn't get laughs out of anybody. And I don't know, maybe I'm just older and way too emotional now, but everybody's story's so sad. I was even moved by Skelly talking about what a sad sack life he had before he turned into a skeleton clown.
It's a really dark game. It's not gonna get more optimistic.
Well, I guess that's true. Here's a weird one. Go ahead, Joe.
I had a quick question for Kyle. Actually, we touched on it a little bit, but were you clear, Kyle, what was going on with the 3 different characters that can get you into Viper Manor, or did you just see Pierre and was like, I'm going to do this Pierre stuff?
I found I did meet some of the other people. I met at least one other person who I remember. I was like, oh, this person I think will get me in there. But then Pierre's activation, I guess you could say, is so simple because the medal's like one screen over from him.
Oh, that's what that was.
Like,
okay.
I put him in my party. I was like, oh, okay, I guess I can go to Viper now. But I didn't really see it as like I've got to make a choice here. It was more just like I met one guy and then Pierre was like available. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just go with the guy that's available.
Yeah.
Yeah, going against everything I was saying before, it was definitely like Gaia was the first one. It's like, oh, of course. Okay, he can show me on the boat with the kid. What's the kid's name?
Yeah, talk to him. Yeah.
Korcha, thank you. So that makes sense. And then I was like, I don't remember if I want Guile. Then I looked it up and realized like, oh, this is where I can lock in with Nikki. And I'm all in on Nikki. Just such a silly character. Mainly because I remember like, especially this period of my life, I really loved the band AFI. I still do. And I always thought like Nikki's kind of like
this period in your life.
Yeah, I guess my entire life, right? But it's like Nikki, that kind of like, effeminate rocker and stuff, very stylish. I was like, oh, Nikki's like Davey Havoc from AFI. Therefore, I have to be all in on Nikki. So I went for that path here and talked to his sister.
Nikki in the alternate universe is a dancer, like a woman, and in the right.
It's confusing. So they both exist in both universes, but he has a sister named Mickey. And so you start out.
I'm not confused, no.
Okay, well, try and wrap your mind around this one. But yeah, you start out, and I think it's in the first, your home world, there's like a poster for Mickey, and there's some pervert looking at it like,
yeah, because
they said
humana humana.
That's right.
And it occurred to me that I've never seen the words humana humana written out.
I mean, we hear it on almost a weekly basis.
That's how you spell humana.
But then the thing I kind of like is then you go to the other world, and then there's the poster of Nikki, and then I think there's some lady there being like, oh, humana humana, I'd like to get my hands on him. It's like, all right, that's kind of fun.
Oh, wooga.
Yeah, classic good phrases.
Joe, who was your guide?
I went with Guile.
Yeah.
I think
I know why, I think.
Well, yeah, that's one reason. But I think for me, ultimately the big one is that I loved that level 3 tech that he has, so Guile's a magician, and his level 3 tech is, I learned playing the remaster that it's called Wanda In.
Same.
Yeah.
I thought it was Wandland.
I also, okay, me too. I for years. Okay, so in the original version of Chrono Cross, they didn't have a space between Wanda and In.
Oh.
Right? So it was all just one, and I thought the capital I was an L, so I called that tech Wandaln.
Yes.
It's a cool sounding word. Yeah.
But this tech is it is seriously messed up because he takes his wand and he basically goes like whoop, puts his hands together and it disappears, and then it reappears like embedded in the guts of his enemy, and then he uses his magic to like rip it out of their bodies towards him. And I thought that was pretty awesome, so I had to go with that again.
Well, Pierre hits bad guys with a sword.
Slow down, Brainiac.
And wait, doesn't he also have an ability to heal himself?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Great. I'm ready to get him out of my party.
No, you got to stick with him to the end now, Kyle. Yeah,
Can I talk about Guile? Is now the time to talk about Guile?
Real quick, yes, you can. Darkfish Days wrote in also talking about how much they love that gruesome weird move, but they called it Wand In. Doesn't that make more sense? Is it Wanda?
That makes more sense, yes.
Like I'm going to shove a wand in your body and then rip it out?
Wanda In is what it's called.
Wanda In.
Weird. Sorry, Rebecca, what do you want to say about Guile?
So I think this is allowed because this is not actually in the. How much can we talk about Radical Dreamers and Chrono Trigger in here?
I think Radical Dreamers should be. I think Radical Dreamers should be our last episode.
I think we'll touch on it a little bit more there, but yeah, I think it's fine.
Okay.
It's fine, Rebecca.
So I'll set up this a little bit, but the reason why I always go with Guile is because, like I mentioned earlier, there were storylines planned for Chrono Cross that did not actually make it in, and Guile is sort of a very weird relic of that. If you've played Chrono Trigger, Guile he's not like this is not in the game, so it's not spoilers for anything that actually happens in Chrono Cross. Yeah. But he was originally intended to be Magus from Chrono Trigger.
I read that online and I couldn't find a source for it, but it's true?
I'm pretty sure it's true. Like he's basically a relic of that. Magus was supposed to be in here. Magus was supposed to be here, like looking for Shala, like at the end of Chrono Trigger is what he's doing. And that is just the storyline is just gone. And the sort of weird remnant is Guile, who I believe tells you at some point that he's looking for something or someone. Like I don't really know what he says, but it just never. There's not really any payoff. He's just sort of a magic gambler dude, I guess. I always pick him because he's like this weird. in my head canon of this game, he's again like an alternate universe version of Magus, I guess, who has no idea what's going on.
But I love that because in Trigger, like Magus is disguised for a while. Isn't he wearing like a big hood for that whole section? So it's funny that he goes from that disguise to now he's just wearing a stupid mask where he's disguised.
I don't even know if the mask and the suit and all that is like, I don't know if that's how Magus was even supposed to look. In this, right?
Sure.
I think what they had is like, okay, we have this Magus connection that we are not going to implement. So we have this character that we've already done all this like work and animation and stuff on.
Yeah.
What do we do with it? Let's slap a mask on him. Let's call him Guile because but Reb is totally right. And that you were right. That is one of the main reasons that I go with him is because like there are some other similarities too. If you look at the way, if you have Guile in your party, when you run, he like does a sort of like lean forward hover the same way Magus does.
Yeah.
And if I'm remembering this correctly, I could be wrong, but in the Japanese version, I think Guile's name is or was at one point Alf, and Magus had a cat named Alphador.
Oh boy, okay.
You know, so it's like so there are these connections, but I kind of like the theory that he is an alternate dimension Magus, but also an alternate dimension Magus that like never had a sister, never became some like real wizard. He was sort of this like weird Chrono Cross wizard. You know, it's like
he's just hanging out on the beach in Termina, trying to just get a couple dollars on the side.
Chrono Cross dude.
Another guy. But there's more to talk about there with Radical Dreamers, but just, again, back of your head.
I want to talk about all that. Charlie Hunter writes in just talking about the different approaches to get to Viper Manor. And they say, I can't believe that a PlayStation 1 game had this much choice and variability. Yeah, it is a fun, cool branching path early on. Timothy Kim is writing, barking up your alley, barking up your tree, Kyle? This tree that the dogs are barking up is right down your alley, Kyle. They say, hey, when I first joined the Patreon, Ben, you sent me a message, a DM, asking for what content I wanted to see, and I replied with a Chrono Cross Deepest Dive. Good to see it finally happening. This is all for you, Timothy. Hope you enjoy. That said, did anyone on the panel pick Pierre? Any thoughts on this big dork? I guess we kind of touched on that already. Kyle's all in.
He's present. Like, he's there. I don't feel strongly about him. He seems weak, honestly. Like, I kind of struggled against Lynx. I died like twice against it.
Really?
I didn't really want to. Yeah, and it was. I blame Pierre.
Oh, I mean, Pierre is objectively the worst of the three guys you can take.
Okay, cool.
From a stats perspective. Yeah.
Well done.
Good. That's what I wanted.
There's a whole thing with him about like, you can get a special, I think it's a sword, shield, and an accessory or something for him that when he has them all, his stats increase enough that it's like, oh, okay, finally he's an okay party member. He doesn't get awesome, but he at least is like, isn't terrible anymore.
Do you know how many other characters are to choose?
I got really excited when I met Lucia, right? Luccia.
Yeah.
Because she seems, and like, again, guys, don't spoil anything, but she seems like an alternate reality Luca.
Interesting.
Like, she seems, the name's similar, and she's like kind of dressed similar. And she even said like, well, hey, let me know. You can come back to my party. And I even went back into that room a couple times. I was like, hey, I really want to get Pierre out of here. You seem cool. Can we please get you in here? But I guess I have to go back later or something. But that's one that I will like make an effort to try to get her.
Yeah.
I genuinely don't remember what her deal is. And as I was playing through, I remember thinking the same thing. I was like, is this alternate reality Luca? I don't remember how this goes.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, she's like a scientist. It certainly seems that way.
I love the intro for her. Like, you just walk into that room and she's just a crazy German scientist who's like, and now you, I can't do a German accent, but, and now you shall be my guinea pigs. And it's like, what? This seems twisted. I don't want some weird Nazi scientist. And then she goes right from that to like, yeah, but come back later. I'll be your best friend. I was like, what? You just said you wanted to experiment. And I was like, the guinea pigs. How twisted are you? Plus, you got some freak in the corner named Pip, who you say can evolve. I don't know about that, but I certainly will free him. Oh, yeah.
Did you open Pip's cage?
Hell yeah. Kyle, did you open Pip's cage?
I don't think I did.
No!
Set him free!
That stings, Kyle. That stings. Did you go talk to that freaky thing in the corner?
I did. I don't think that was an option to like, did I need to find a key or something?
No, it's immediate. It's basically, he literally, you talk to him, he's like, hi, I'm Pip. Nice to meet you. My dream is to be in a big boat and sail across the ocean. Wouldn't that be sweet? And then I think it's just right there. You can choose to open the cage or not.
Then I must have. Then I don't know.
Okay.
I wouldn't have chosen not to let.
Well,
that
you seem
character
all in
free.
on the Nazi scientist, so I don't know, man. You seem to be smitten immediately. James, sorry, Joe. I feel like I cut you off. Were you going to say something about?
No, that was my question. Is I wanted to know about Pip because I remember there was one playthrough where I didn't, and I don't. Well,
easy.
I think it's important to do that.
Yeah,
They'll be fine, right? Yeah.
Right,
okay.
right.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah,
I don't have to worry about them. They're not going to die later or anything.
Everything's
Got
great.
it.
Everything's great. You can't mess up, Kyle. You didn't just miss out on the game's most interesting character.
Twice you've been like, well, you can't mess up. Like, you probably shouldn't have gotten Pierre. You're kind of a jerk for not letting Pip out of the game.
I mean, if we're talking.
Apparently, this dog thing is very important to people. I missed that thing.
Very important.
We're not going to get too far ahead of ourselves at all here.
Yeah.
But we were talking about how much we love the weird stuff in Chrono Cross.
Yeah.
Pip is really one of the weird things.
Yes, Pip is a weird thing. Absolutely. It's a great way to put it.
All right.
James writes in, still can't get over this, saying, turning down Kid and Mickey and everyone in their effort to sneak in and just walking up to the front gate of Viper Manor with Pierre and busting in is so absurdly glorious. It makes no sense. Lena was just like, wait, you're being turned away, Pierre? But why don't we just charge in? She made a compelling point. Why sneak through a forest if the gate is right here? Kyle, can you shed any light into what's going on there?
I've never done that.
It was funny because I think that he even says something like, I have a plan, don't worry. And then the plan, like, played as a joke is he's like, charge! And it's like the whole, that's how you get in. I'm like, oh, okay, let's do this. Following your lead, Pierre.
Charlie Hunter writes in and says, anybody who took the cliff to the manor? Those gosh darn rocks, right?
Very annoying, yes.
What is this like? I don't remember this.
So there's basically three things. So Pierre, I guess, has this thing where you charge the gate. I think, Nikki, you go through a forest,
yep.
perhaps. And then if you take Guile, Korcha takes you on his boat to like the cliffs outside of Viper Manor, and you have to climb the cliff to get up the side. And as you're going up the cliff, there's a bunch of guards on the top who are like, hey, look at those guys. And they start throwing rocks down at you. And you have to dodge the rocks while going up the cliff. And the rocks hurt, and they kind of just come down like randomly, so it's really hard to dodge them effectively, especially when you're on a ladder.
Yeah, if you're climbing up, you're essentially just like in a vertical chute. So if a rock is coming directly down at you, there's nothing you can do but eat a bunch of rock.
Yeah, there's also a bunch of like things spitting water out that can knock you off the cliff. So there's a lot of time that's spent climbing up halfway, sitting there waiting a second for the water to stop, hoping not to get hit by a rock, and then going past.
Huh. Yeah, for Nikki, you go to the Shadow Forest, and Logan C. Cell writes in about it saying, did anyone else have trouble luring the blob monsters in Shadow Forest? The exactness the task requires reminded me of some of the more frustrating movement-based challenges in some Xenogears dungeons. Yeah, so what you have to do is you have to go basically get like this little blob of food and then bring it to different blob monsters in the forest. And it's kind of funny because you have to collect all three and you bring them to this big monster. And then it's just this weird moment where there's this big monster blocking the path, and it's like, blah! And it's this huge monster, and then it's just like, beep, 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 beep. It just like shrinks down to this tiny thing and then runs away. And it's like, okay, that was the blob monster, everybody. I guess it's just a good example of, the game zigging when you think it's going to zag.
It kind of sounds like I ended up choosing the path of least resistance. Like, I just
guess so.
walked up to the gate and walked in. I just had to do a few fights. I had to feed a bunch of animals.
Oh, we'll get to that. Oh,
yeah, we all had to do that.
Yeah.
I wonder if, because you were saying you died a few times to Lynx, I wonder if like that path ends up with you being a little underleveled.
That's
because,
interesting.
Like, I fought a bunch of crap on the cliffs going up, like monsters just all over the dang place.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. I fought a lot in the forest too. And like, there's a funny moment where you come into the forest and you see Nikki, and he's talking to one of the blob monsters and trying to find a way to interact with it, but he doesn't know you have to like feed it yet. And there's this stupid moment where you're just watching Nikki, who you don't know yet, and he's like, okay, blob monster, well, how about this? And then he just goes into like full singing mode, and he sings, whoa, sweet sister of mine. And then like the monster doesn't do anything, and then he just like falls to his knees, and I'm just like, oh well, and then runs away. But I just love the idea of this like rock god running around the forest. His only way of interacting with these creatures is he tries singing a song, and it does nothing. And he's, all right, gotta keep rambling on. Oh, and also when you recruit Nikki, he calls himself the Rockin' Bard, which is a pretty cool move. So
I did just realize I said that maybe Kyle's underleveled, but like that's not a real thing. Like you're not, there's not levels in a regular sense.
It's confusing, right? A lot of people wrote in about the combat, trying to wrap their mind around exactly how this works. But Joe, since you're such a huge fan of min-maxing and systems and games and all that stuff. What do you think about just the leveling system here?
I really like it, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because I think it really does a good job of bringing people along who don't care about min-maxing, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine such a thing.
Essentially, the way it works is like when you beat a boss, you get like a star level, and that star level essentially determines everyone's base stats, whether someone's in your party or not in your party, or whatever. So it's like at this point in the game, we probably have, I don't remember exactly, 8 stars, 7 stars, something like that. So that means that like, rather than the game tracking the individual levels of, so many characters, it really just has a party level that determines a sort of base stat for everyone. So that means that if you don't care about really maximizing, you can just go with that and you will not be underpowered. You will be fine. But if you do care about that, there are ways to optimize, because basically after you get a star, you have a good chance in these like subsequent battles, like subsequent random encounters, to get like extra bonuses, little snack bonuses for the characters that are currently in your party for a certain number of battles after that.
Yeah, so it's like 8 battles or so that you'll get those bonuses, but otherwise once that stops hitting, then you can stop worrying about grinding.
Yeah, exactly. So there's basically no grinding in the game at all. And I think an RPG, especially from this era, that can really keep you just moving forward rather than having you like giving you those sort of like weird difficulty spikes. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, so this is the part I don't understand. Yara wrote in on Patreon saying the leveling system is so in-depth. The basics are simple. You get a big stat boost after a boss and smaller one on enemies in between, but there's more if you really want to min-max it. In addition, there is a third type, the mini star. After beating a certain amount of enemies, no more than 8, you can receive a bigger boost with multiple stats. This also previews what your next star level will give. So if you get 5 HP, 1 star, and 1 medium res, you'll get at least those stats on your next star level. Sometimes this boost will come after your small boosts have stopped, and not every star level has one.
This is too complicated.
Basically, you don't have to grind and you'll be fine.
Yeah,
just play the game.
I don't have to engage much deeper than what Joe was saying, right? Because I've always been curious about that with Chrono Cross. Is like, how do you get do you have to bring everyone up to speed? Like, I was always curious how that works. So it's nice to see that like I can just swap people in and out based on if I like them more so their levels.
Yeah.
Like that.
One thing I'll say is that if I'm remembering this correctly, I haven't researched it in a while, but the exception to this rule is that if a character, like let's say you're fighting Lynx with Kid, Serge, and Pierre dies, and the battle ends with Pierre at like dead at 0 HP. I think he misses that star level then.
And you can see that somewhere?
I don't know if it's visible anywhere, but I think that like under the hood, that character misses that star level.
I don't think that's true, because I think it might be true to an extent, but I think you still get, so one of the things that you get with star levels is you get more slots for magic.
Yeah.
Like they still get the magic slots. Like my Surge has died in a couple boss battles now, and which is annoying because he's the one who knows revive right now. And he's still getting his magic slots. So they might still get their magic slots, but I think you might be right about them not getting the stat bonuses.
Interesting.
Yeah. I it's been a while. I'm not sure exactly how all that works, but I mean, what the bottom line is like, I guess just like, but I mean, like that's kind of par for the course for any RPG, because bosses always usually give big XP boosts that you miss out on if a character is dead anyway. So try and keep them alive, I guess.
Yeah.
Real quick, it's always advantageous to like, because you have those options at the end of a fight where it's like use items to heal or don't use items to heal. There's no reason to ever hit that third option of like don't heal.
I don't
no reason.
think so.
Right.
Okay.
No,
because like even if you don't have cure, like right, okay, that's what I assumed, but I wasn't sure because early in the game I was hitting that third option. I was like, I think this is stupid. I don't think I should be hitting that option.
No, you should always at least be using available element slots to heal.
Okay, that's what I assumed.
Without consumables.
It's nice to have that confirmation.
Yeah.
I'll also just say for your benefit, Kyle, like you're right that you kind of can just swap people out and don't have to worry about it too much. But if you basically like the first time I played this game,
I can get Pierre out of there like as soon as possible.
Don't rush any judgment.
The first time I played this game, I picked up Surge, Kid, and Guile and basically used them the entire way. Like I rarely, if ever, swapped anyone else out.
Wow.
And as a result, because they were the ones getting all the mini stat boosts after every boss battle, they were significantly stronger than everybody else by the end of the game because I literally never swapped them out. So if you're just using the same 3 guys the whole game, they will end up a little bit overpowered compared to everybody else. But if there's no like disadvantage to like moving people in and out regularly.
Okay, cool.
Gotcha. Yeah, Joshua Duperoy says, so far, I like this game I like the combat more than Chrono Trigger's combat, which is great, but it's a little simple. I still don't know what determines when the enemy gets to attack.
I feel 100% the opposite.
You prefer the simple thing? I get it.
Anyway, go ahead.
I still don't know what determines when the enemy gets to attack, but I love how OP your attacks can become when utilizing the field effect correctly in conjunction with turn color spells. Also, why doesn't every JRPG ask you to heal after every battle? Yeah, it's amazing. And the fact that there's no MP, like it feels so refreshing not to have to worry about that constant drain. This is my number one question about combat so far, though, is am I missing some indicator for when enemies can attack? Is that just random?
It's not random. I think it's stamina based,
Okay.
So in the same way, I should say, I don't have a full understanding of it beyond that, other than to know that like, if there is like, as you expend stamina and you need to rest, I know that creates opportunities for enemies, but also there are times when it's like, well, I'm in the middle of an attack, but now I have to jump back and wait for an enemy to jump in and attack too.
Right.
So, but I think, I guess I don't fully understand that. No.
There's not some obvious indicator you're missing.
Okay,
right?
thank you.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is kind of how I've been approaching combat and like taking advantage of the new stuff. It almost feels like kind of like Final Fantasy 13 a little bit, in that like I just let them auto battle, to do the 1, 2, 3 selection. And then I turn it off to like activate like magic attacks and stuff like that. And then I'll like turn it back on. Cause the process of like, selecting like 1, 2, 2, 3, like that, right. I just kind of find like grating. And like, it's also like, that's the part where like the kind of slow, where it technically is like kind of bad frame rates and stuff like bothers me the most. Cause I'm just trying to select options. So like, that's kind of how I've been doing combat, is like mostly keeping auto battling on until I want to do something special.
That seems fine. Yeah, Joel Hopkins is with you and he's wondering like, am I missing out on something? And the easy answer is, yeah, I don't think they'll do any elements if you're auto battling, which almost makes some combat take longer. Like it's nicer just to pop an element, there's no penalty, move on, it's all refreshed by your next battle. So that'd be the only downside, I guess. But yeah, I get it. I understand not wanting to nickel and dime your way through different percentages. It gets to be a lot in there. Let's see. Ronnie Barrier writes in on Patreon. It says the opening to the game made my wife look up and say, "What are you playing? I'm into it." And then Ronnie says, "Got her." That being said, does this game have even worse accuracy percentages than XCOM? If I miss an attack at 91% one more time, I'm punting Poshel off a bridge.
Ronnie's my coworker. Hi, Ronnie.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. He's been submitting questions for a long time. Hello.
Yeah, we were in a debate about Wii U games today. It was great.
Oh, bizarre. Thank you, Ronnie. Thanks for your support. Yeah, the percentage seems nonsensical. I think it's you can subtract 10 or so, I think, is what I saw as the rough frame of reference online for the odds of you actually hitting, because there's a lot of stuff missing.
Yeah. When you just jump straight to a 3, like out of the gate, just because you're feeling daring that day and it connects.
That's amazing. The power. It's amazing.
I do feel like Surge has a better chance than other characters of hitting.
Oh, interesting.
I could be wrong about that, but it's certainly like he's the only one that I ever get that like jump to a 3 and he hits it. If Kid's gonna try it, she's gonna whiff. Just like she whiffs every time she tries to pilfer.
Yeah, but she'll be
You know
really
who else
cocky
whiffs
about
a
it.
lot, Joe? Pierre.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't know. The XCOM thing is interesting. I feel like Jake Solomon and the Firaxis team have been like, no, that's just percentages, everybody. It's just the human brain can't comprehend that, 85% means 15% of the time you miss. Just get used to it, everybody. But this one does seem like complete nonsense with Chrono Cross, but I hear you.
Like XCOM. This one's actually...
Yeah, this one, yeah. Does anybody have a go-to move? Because I'm still experimenting with elements. I always want to say elementals, but I feel like Bush Basher is just leaps and bounds above everything else that I'm using. But does anybody else have a favorite?
Magma Bomb.
Yeah, it's good for everybody.
Oh, that fire stuff.
Yeah.
Well, and if you have Kid in your party too, like she's innate red, Magma Bomb's red. It's a multi-target spell. Yeah, I have Magma Bomb +2 up there, ready to fire all the time.
Ooh, that's good.
I have like a very intrinsic motive. The first time I played this, what I ended up doing is every character in my party was assigned 2 elements. Their innate element and then like a backup element by the end. So
Right.
in my head, Surge is light or like white element, whatever, and then blue. And Kid is red and I think yellow, and then Guile is green and black. And so that's like what I default to because that's just what my brain wants to do. But right now I don't have enough elements to quite make that up in a way that makes sense.
Sure.
So everybody's just kind of all over the place.
Yeah, Kyle, are you doing auto assign for the elements?
I
I don't know how to...
You're fine. You're fine.
The
The show's ruined, Rebecca. What have you done?
Talked to me for a long time about elements. I mean, that camera circled around him like 50 times.
Yep.
And he certainly said a lot of things. So maybe I need to research this more because I don't fully understand it.
We'll walk you through it. If you got, honestly though, I'm a little bit confused about the innate thing. I know that everybody has their innate color, but how does that factor in? I know. So Kyle, if you get the field effect, that circle thing in the corner, as far as I understand it, if that's all the same color and then you use a spell of that color, then it does super duper damage.
Yeah, which is weird for me because it's like, okay, so I use fire like 3 times.
Yes.
And then at that point, I'm like out of fire.
Yes.
Usually, because I've only got 3 fire attacks. Like, I mean, is it just going to get, do things get better? Like,
Yes.
do I get to take advantage of that more later? Because right now I feel like I can't really take advantage of it.
Yes and no, in the sense that yes, you absolutely the game opens up a lot more after this combat wise, but no, in the sense that enemies will use elements more often and mess it up.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
So
There is an element you can get later for all of the elements. That's called like black field.
yeah.
Or, red field or whatever. So it's like one cast and it just colors the whole field at once, that color.
But the basic idea, just so I'm clear, like let's say I'm using Kid. I use fire a bunch to try to make that fully red. And then when I use fire again, that attack will be way more powerful.
It'll be more powerful, but really the thing to keep it, that's one of those, that's almost like a really nice if it happens and you can make it work scenario. It's almost like a limit break or something in Final Fantasy, right? I mean, it's not it's not a special move, but it's like, that's not a fundamental element of combat that you're going to use in every battle. The thing to keep in mind is that every character has an innate element, an innate color that makes them better at using that element, that color, than other characters.
Okay.
And it makes them less good at using the opposing element and more vulnerable to damage. So the idea is like Surge is white, right? Innate white. So that means that he is better at casting white elements than people who are not innate white. But that means that he is weaker at casting black elements. And when black elements are cast against him, he takes more damage from them.
Okay.
That's why him and Lynx, rivals forever. Just when you're in doubt, just remember what Shuffle Guy submitted, Kyle, over on Patreon. Shuffle Guy says, "Dear community, a poem on the colors of innate elements. Roses are red, violets are blue. Do these innate elements seem logic to you? Tulips are yellow, the grasses are green. These color combinations cannot be unseen. The clouds are black and the snow is white. The only contrary colors, which are actually right. This knowledge is vital for you to thrive. See you on the next part of the deepest dive," says Shuffle Guy.
Can we get that?
I don't know. I think
Yeah,
red
that's
and
question of the week right there, Ben.
Question of the dive of the week. I don't know.
I think red and blue make sense as opposing elements because red is like tied to fire and then blue is like ice and water.
Yeah.
So that as a video game RPG person, that makes sense to me. But I think there's definitely why are like green and yellow are just leftover, like electricity and grass, I guess, are two opposing things.
It's a thing.
They're not the same thing.
This might be really dumb. If I swear I could figure this out if I put 2 brain cells towards it, but I haven't yet. The white and red things on the left when you're attacking, and there's kind of like that visualization in the UI of white and red. What is that exactly?
Status ailments, right?
Is it?
No.
Oh, I thought it was like which attacks you were doing, right? So the 1 is smaller, the 2 is a lot, and it basically visualizes which you can use, right?
Yeah,
Yes,
that's all
that's
it is.
correct.
But
It's basically just a log. It's pointless. It just shows
Okay.
you the attacks that you've done recently.
oh, that's very confusing.
I think
Okay.
that's what we're talking about. There's like a little
Yeah.
block of color that will appear by a character's little square when they have a status ailment or like a status up or down. So like I think if it's red, they've been burned.
Oh, that's
perhaps?
I think a different thing. But yeah,
Okay.
I hear you.
Okay.
Which by the way, I like that the debuffs. There's moves that are called low res and high res, which is funny when you're dealing with a remaster here where there might be some issues with the res.
Or Lynx uses imbecile and genius.
Yeah, it's so
Right.
good.
I like.
That's cool.
Crater writes in and says, little wild from a game of this era that you can just straight up walk by the combat tutorial and never know who made this. From Software? Oh. Yeah, you get the talk to the mayor there. Hopefully that wasn't too long. I was dreading it a little bit because everyone when I was streaming was like, oh, this guy talks forever. But it's like, it wasn't that bad.
Not too bad.
I feel like everyone talks a little bit too much, and I think it's because the reason why is because they'll dialogue box will come up and they'll talk and talk, and then it'll go away, but then one final thing pops up often. So like everyone I'm always like turning to walk away, and then they have like one more thing, like constantly.
Regular Columbo, yeah. Christopher Reardon writes in about that. Says, I'm loving this game, the music, the character designs, the fact that hang on. He loves everything. The fact that rotating the right stick makes Surge spin in place like a fancy boy. I haven't done this, but this sounds great. He says, but the NPCs do not shut up. Even when you think they're done and you're walking away, they keep going, and it's too much.
I like that I can walk away, though.
Yes.
I appreciate that I still have control of the character. That's like one of those weird things that I like. I never like control being fully taken away from me if I can help it.
Yep, Kirk Muddle is completely with you. He loves that they carried that forward from Chrono Cross. Did you get any Master Roshi vibes from that mayor, Kyle?
No, but in retrospect, yeah, I guess I should have. Yeah.
He looks like him, and there's like a wall scroll you can go read where it's written by Radius the mayor, and he says, the ecstasy and anxiety of the chosen one. A mega babe is in love with me. I'm on cloud 9, but I don't want to get dumped. So yeah, there you go. It's some very smart wisdom from old Radius. I like that the other mayor just has no time for you. He just does not care at all about whatever you're doing. Yeah. Mr. Not Radius, as his name is known.
Can I complain about something real quick?
Rebecca, is he allowed to?
Yeah, I think so. I'll allow it.
Okay, cool.
Okay, you want to send it to me and then I'll bring it up? Well, I could do that if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Here, let me slack it. No, I think one of the things that has aged very poorly about this game for me is the very like finicky locations you need to be in to perform certain actions on like items or like painted elements of the background or something, where it's like, oh, I want to open this door, and I go and like mash X by it, and it's like, oh, I guess I can't open this door. And then I come back to it a few minutes later. It's like, I gotta be able to open this door. And, oh yeah, you have to stand at this angle on this 1 pixel, and then you can open this door.
Yeah, I feel this as well in trying to find hidden items because there are items hidden like in pots and garbage cans and under beds, like the Heckran bone. And I can't really blame it on this because I feel like I wasn't actually thinking too hard about how to get Poshel in that first area, but I was checking under like every piece of furniture I could because I knew there were things. And I feel like I checked under that bed, but it didn't register. So I'm just gonna blame it on the controls.
No, I missed the photon ray. There's like a photon ray element.
Yeah.
Love photon ray.
In the initial homeworld Arnie Village that I missed, and because I went to it, I hadn't cracked open my strategy guide yet. I went there and I was like, I was sure there was a photon ray here, but I guess not. And I was just standing in slightly the wrong spot.
Oh, that's
because I got it in the another world in that spot. I was like, oh, dang it. Now I'm going to have to wait like 10 hours.
Maybe we'll never go back. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Sorry.
That's fine. It seems unforgivable for any game after Final Fantasy VII, but especially in this era with like the baked in backgrounds there. Like, I love that ability in Final Fantasy VII just to hit, select, and then it just pops up. Here are all the exits. Here are all the doorways you can interact with. I feel like this game needs just that little bit of a guide every once in a while. Because, Braulio Martinez writes in about it, says, are y'all having a tough time with the pre-rendered backgrounds? Getting the chests in the section with the Komodo dragons was ridiculous. It reminded me of how when my girlfriend beat the original Final Fantasy VII in 2019, she would just pass me the controller to get past the, quote, background BS, and I would do it just by memory. Yep, it's incredible how there is nothing to indicate you can interact with the backgrounds. Yeah, like jumping in that hole to pop out, especially with the remaster, it's just like, it looks just like a bush. There's barely anything distinguishing it.
It could be anything.
It could be absolutely anything, yeah.
But the backgrounds are so pretty, Ben. They're so pretty.
Yeah. What do you think about the upscaling, the AI upscaling they did for this version here?
I'm actually mostly okay with it.
Yeah.
Mostly. I tried switching back to classic, and I think the character portraits... I think the new character portraits are good. I think they lose something in moving over. But the backgrounds, I was like, you know what? This does not look right on a 4K TV.
Yeah.
It needs the upscaling.
It does. And there's definitely areas like there's like a, one tiny thing that stood out to me a little bit is like there's a chair in one of the houses in Arnie Village. And with the upscaling, it made like just the arm of the chair all like squibbly when it should just be a straight line. There's some things like that you can pick up on of just like, okay, this is weird when they're just giving it this pass for all of the pixelated background. But there's a PlayStation blog post that was interesting where they talked about the problem here and how they lost all of those old assets, and so they couldn't rescan in, because the way they would do it is they made this 3D environment and then take the single picture of it, and then that is just to save space. That's what would be in the game, and they lost those original 3D files for all the environments. So they're like, well, all we can do is use an AI upscaler. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah, I would have... I know, like, even starting, I was like, this is technically would be very difficult, but I did wish it was like, it could have been in widescreen, but it would have meant like going back and finding those original backgrounds, which it just would have been hell. It just would have they might as well point,
Yeah, you cut out, but I think we get the idea. I was playing.
It was very smart what I said.
I believe you, man.
Regret not hearing it.
And maybe this is too naive of me, but I'm like, man, it's Chrono Cross. Is it not worth paying a couple of artists just to redo all of these areas? I mean, and just have you wander around on a new 2D image for all of these environments. Like, I understand that is probably a secret amount of like a gigantic amount of work secretly, but it's Chrono Cross. It'd be worth it. And then you could have made it, 16:9 in there.
I don't know. I feel like you're also at that point though, just going to get people who are going to nitpick the way we're nitpick. They're going to be like, it doesn't matter how much work went in to make them 16:9. People are going to be like, ugh, these new backgrounds look like garbage.
Right. That's true.
You're still, I think you're still going to have the same audience split. It's not going to make people any more interested in playing the game who wouldn't have played it before. So yeah, I don't know. I guess I get it. I'm happy with what I got.
Yeah. I think two things can be true at the same time. Like I think it can both be true that there are some kind of weird finicky things with like the performance and the tech and the upscaling that probably could have been improved. But I also think that no matter what, it's never going to be as good as you remember it in your head. Like the idea in my head of what Chrono Cross looked like when I first played it is not how it looks now if I take it and put it on my PS2 and try to play it. Like it's not going to look that good. So, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay.
D's Butts writes in about something we were touching on earlier, saying, okay, the barrel in home Arnie Village, the pot in another Arnie Village, rejecting Kid at Cape Howell, opening Karsh's treasure in Viper Manor. Chrono Cross seems to be consistently encouraging its players to incessantly nag everyone in the game. Is this how we should treat Square Enix if we ever want to get Chrono Break? Yes, it is. I love that Karsh's treasure in Viper Manor. That's like just a nice crystallization of like, this is what I love about Chrono Cross. It is just so silly. Kyle, did you do that?
I don't know. What is it?
There's a treasure chest in Karsh's room, who's one of the Dragoons. Is that what they're called?
Yes,
okay.
Yes, he's one of the 4 dragons.
Thank you. Yeah, but he's a treasure chest, and he's like, don't even try it. And you talk to the treasure chest again, he's like, seriously, dude, don't take it. You try talking to him again, he's like, I'm telling you, man, don't do it. And then you keep touching it, and then eventually he just says, I'm telling you for the 12th time, telling you for the 13th time, telling you for the 14th time, telling you for the 15th time. It just becomes like this stock number going up. But then when you get to 20, he's like, all right, man, just take it. You can take my kick-ass Dragoon armor. Have at it. It's like, hell yeah.
Oh, no, I definitely didn't do that. I mean, I think I tried a couple times, but yeah, I wouldn't have. That's like hitting that wall in Elden Ring 50 times.
You're right.
Like, why would I assume that I could do that?
But
I will say I liked in that area. I think the door enemies were probably my favorite.
Yeah.
Like, weird designs for the enemies was like those things were cool and weird to fight. And then they summon creatures that I'm guessing will show up like later in the game and stuff like that, which is cool.
Yeah, Sean Mills writes in about that. He says, I love how creative the enemy designs have been in the first part, especially in Viper Manor. We have weird doors with eyeballs, robots accompanied by will-o-wisps, electric plants, and my favorite, the boxer boys, who are treasure chests with goofy arms and legs that give you a 50-50 chance to get a good item. The Hell House from Final Fantasy VII would fit in great with these weirdos. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
This is a very weird, stupid tangent, and I apologize for this, but
Please.
So when they first announced the Final Fantasy VII remake,
Yeah.
there was this, I think, Reddit post linking to an Imgur album that was like a list of Final Fantasy VII enemies that should absolutely be in the remake, but under no circumstances will be.
Yes.
And it's a list of all the stupidest Final Fantasy VII enemies possible, like Hell House and like these weird
The guy
women
swinging
and,
on the chandelier thing.
swinging, yeah, and like a guy whose like body is a motorcycle. I'm not a Final Fantasy VII person. I don't remember.
No,
what
that's
it is.
it. That's art. Yeah.
But yeah, and so
favorite
obviously
John Mayer
these
song.
things ended up in the remake in whatever form they ended up in the remake. Fine, but this list is just hilarious, and I think about that. I'm playing through Chrono Cross, and I'm thinking about this list because there's all these very stupid enemies, and some of them have great names. I love the name Alphabat. I think that's really
It's
funny.
very good. It is
It
very
makes me
good.
laugh every time I see it. But yeah, the door, and there's more to come. There's so many weird enemies.
the door that Kyle's talking about is another good pun. It's a portalgeist.
Yes,
Of course.
it's so good.
Of course.
Yeah.
But then, I mean, the thing, we've talked about Final Fantasy VII enough, but the thing that's amazing is they say, well, Hell House is too stupid for the amount of visual fidelity they're going for the remake. And then not only do they include the Hell House, but they make it like one of the highlights of the entire game.
Yup.
It's so good.
Like someone dared them to include Hell House,
Yeah.
and they're like, "Oh, you think we're not going to include Hell House?"
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, you think we're not
It's
going
like
to?
a very good reminder that there's like a certain humor, I think, in poorer graphics than we have now,
Yeah.
where some things were just very stupid on accident, and I miss that sometimes.
Yeah. Johnny M writes in and says, do the beach bum enemies feel weirdly out of place / under-designed to anyone else? I remember thinking they were generic overworld enemy sprites when I first saw them back in the day, and being surprised that they were actual enemies when combat started. What the hell are they even? So this is why I like the deepest dive, because people write in about the beach bum enemy design. Find me another podcast that's talking about the beach bum design. I dare you.
I don't know if this is intentional. I don't think there's like intentionality here. They remind me of the little guys from Chrono Trigger. The
little imps or whatever?
Yeah, the news.
The news, yeah, which are like
Oh.
a big plot point in Chrono Trigger. They can't possibly be connected because the beach bums are like nothing in Chrono Cross, but like they look like news.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I could see it.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah, let's just say it's all an homage and they're actually impeccably designed.
Well, I
Right,
couldn't
yeah.
remember which enemies these were, so I googled them and went straight to the Chrono Cross wiki, and they call out the news like in the.
Oh, really?
In
There we
the
go.
description.
That's
and stuff.
awesome.
In the wiki, so it's all fan generated. But yeah.
Yeah.
So you're not alone there, Rebecca.
Shuffle Guy submits a comment on Patreon and says, decades ago, I joined y'all for the deepest dive on Chrono Trigger. Thank you. Now with the re-release of Chrono Cross and its own Double D, I'm honored to join again. I don't know about calling it that, but thank you. Just like Chrono Trigger, I checked at the start if the curtains could be closed after waking up, and by golly, they did it again. Good game confirmed. Hell yeah. I love
good.
that. You need to have the big waking up scene, of course.
I was kind of bummed about the in media res stuff that they like. It let us not go straight to wake up.
Oh,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like I kind of was. I don't know. I'm kind of I've hit a point with in media res story stuff where I'm just like, we figure out a better way to start things. Like I don't like it anymore.
Really?
Video games, movies, TV shows, whatever. Like it just there's not a lot of value in like starting in the middle.
Yeah, but what if there's like, a tease of a jaguar roar and Then you get like the big heartbeat when he looks at the door, which is another very Final Fantasy VII thing. Like right when you're starting to open the door, it's very Sephiroth. Like
I don't know what you're talking about. Like this, I've totally forgotten about this.
Oh, really?
But I'm not going to remember it.
You don't remember the
Okay,
heartbeat?
let me raise you this. So we have now twice seen a very ominous vision of Surge potentially like maybe doing something unsavory, violent to one of his party members.
Yeah.
Like implied. And I think that's a very haunting way to begin a game.
Yeah, I like it too.
We don't at this point know what that's about, but we've now twice seen this like very weird vision. Once at the very beginning, at the end of that like opening dungeon, and then again at the end of Viper Manor. And that I think it's a really upsetting image.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I like the idea too of just like, certain party members having more weight because of those flash forwards. And I think this game just does such a good job of setting that dark tone of like even the fortune teller in Termina. You go talk to her and she's like, "You're not dead or anything, are you?" And then she goes, "You just might be the key to the destruction of the entire planet." It's like, Jesus Christ, I just wanted you to tell me I'd get married to a pretty person. What are you doing to me, buddy?
A very normal fortune to give somebody.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, I like that if you get Poshel's fortune read, it's like, "Hey, you're fat. You should stop eating so much." And Poshel's like, "Oh, okay." So that's why Poshel's a great character, Joe.
I like talking to the portraitist, the who does the drawings right next door to the fortune teller, where it's just like, "Do you want a portrait?" And you're like, "Yeah, okay." And it just shows you the dumb character portrait that you've seen 100 times for each character. Yeah.
By the way, I totally
I
messed
get
up
it.
when you introduced me at the beginning of this, Hanson, where I should have used the catchphrase "scribbly-doo," because that's what he says. And I took a screenshot of that and tweeted that. I was like, "There's my new catchphrase." So I got to remember for the next episode when you introduce me, I got to say "scribbly-doo."
Okay, please do. And please only refer to me as Surgipu. I think it's my canonical name, thanks to Pochel.
Everyone in Chrono Cross is having the most normal one of their lives at all times.
It's just absurd.
You
Rory,
guys, Ben, you need to make some MinnMax merch that just says "Poshel Pals" on it.
oh yeah, woof woof. Oh man, just imagine if Pochel was hanging out with Roche from Final Fantasy VII. Just imagine the bliss they could get into, just adventuring together around on their motorcycle. Never mind. Rory Sublet writes in and says, "Hello, divers. Would there be any better place to live than a small beach town in a JRPG? Arnie Village and Termina, both beautiful towns. The art and color palette of this game are incredible." Yeah, if you had to choose, Arnie Village or Termina, do you think?
Termina.
It's more to do.
More stuff. Yeah.
Good dock
It's
to
a
jump
port
off
town. There's
of.
stuff getting imported.
Yeah, you can jump off those docks and Arnie. You could worship Mojo. I know we're all interested in that.
I mean, they're really far apart. It's not like that's a couple days walk
Probably.
to get to
Probably.
to get to that pier to jump off of.
Yeah.
I'm
think
gonna go
there's
live in the
something-
Hydra marshes.
There's
yeah.
something like very evocative about Termina. Like it's very cool because so Chrono Cross takes place in this archipelago called El Nido that has, as we will discover throughout the game, mostly coastal towns. Like that's pretty much all we're visiting the whole time is stuff by the ocean. And like everywhere is very distinct. And I love Termina because it's this very like Mediterranean, like very like white stone, like feels very clean and beautiful and colorful. Like the ocean is very blue. There's like there's flowers everywhere. Like it feels bustling and lively, but also like still very connected to nature and like a place that you would go on an exotic vacation or something. It's really beautiful.
Yeah. Timothy Smith here zooming in. Well, hang on. No, we're gonna go here instead. Colton Westbrook says, "Let's talk setting. I adore the bright tropical vibe of El Nido so much. It's one of the many things that drew me to this game 20 years ago, and it remains so unique." And then Ethan Poe says, "I just want to say that I really love the Polynesian tone of this game and later Final Fantasy X." That is interesting. It's true. Do you know Ethan Poe?
No, I had a different thought. Sorry.
Oh, but then Ethan says, "I really miss this era where major RPGs would draw more heavily from less traditional fantasy settings." I think that's interesting. I don't know. Joe, do you have any sense of that? If they're shaking it up more for the traditional fantasy setting back then compared to now? I mean, there's plenty of different types of RPGs, but maybe in the JRPG sense, maybe?
No, I mean, I think that those few years that this was, I guess 97 through 01 or 02 or so, I think there was definitely a pushback against that traditional like knights and dragons and armor stuff, like Final Fantasy VII, and then Final Fantasy VIII going much more modern with it.
Yeah. Even stuff like Shadow Hearts later on, like, trying to shake it up.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's telling that one of the big selling points for Final Fantasy IX, like I remember the ads for it, was like the crystal comes back.
Yep.
Right? Or
Yep.
the crystal returns. That, in fact, that might even be, is that?
On the back?
The ad in my guide? Yeah, it is. Look at that.
Hell yeah.
Oh, look at that.
Whoa, the crystal comes back.
So, I mean, I think that at that point, it's sort of been like, hey, the Final Fantasy franchise, but I think a lot of other ones too at that point were sort of like, we've been doing some different stuff and we're going to try. But again, I guess Final Fantasy X then does also have that sort of Polynesian thing going on too.
Yeah,
which,
yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
I was just Googling now because I was curious how far apart they were, but Termina is like, where Majora's Mask takes place.
Oh, yeah.
And then, then it's in Chrono Cross 2, and they're a year apart, so they must have been like thinking about Termina at the same time.
Everyone was thinking about Termina. It was Y2K and Termina. It's all we could talk about back then.
Well, why? Like, why did they both arrive at that name?
That is weird.
Something.
I think it makes sense for Majora's Mask thematically, just to talk about the entirety of Majora's Mask, because Termina sounds like terminus, like the end, like the very final place or whatever. And so if you know anything about Majora's Mask, boy, does that sound right. I think it's maybe too early to unpack what Termina means at this point in Chrono Cross, but I don't know. Maybe that has thematic significance. Who can say?
Rebecca, earlier when you looked like you're being electrocuted, what did you want to talk about?
We were talking about, I know we've talked like a little bit about the music, but it hit me because we were talking about the overworld again. How bonkers is it that the overworld theme for Homeworld is the Chrono Trigger, the two motifs of the main Chrono Trigger theme flipped like backwards. So the first motif is now second, and then in like a tropical instrument theme. What? Why did that occur to anyone? It's so good.
Here, let's listen to it. This is Planes of Time here. It's such a funky note. Like the steel drums for Chrono Trigger, it's so cool. Yeah, it's the greatest of all time. Yeah, I think with the music in this game, there's 1,000 things that'll hit you like a ton of bricks, but I think the one that hit me the most was World Map in Another World. Like that music just destroys me. For just to refresh everybody's memories here. It is such a all-natural soundtrack compared to everything else in this era. It just feels like, I feel like this is an intimate exchange with these musicians compared to even just some of the greatest synthesized music from Final Fantasy in the past.
Well, someone in the Twitch chat said it is synthesized.
I saw that too.
Maybe that introductory song isn't, and I don't know. I'm just going off Twitch chat. So.
Well, the part, genuinely, one of my favorite moments in video games, and this is so
I know what you're going
dorky.
to bring up. We've talked about this before.
Okay, yeah, Scars of Time, just to remind everybody here.
Get to the good part.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Hang on.
Running like the wind.
This
hair, blue skies.
Yeah, this reminds me of Cerulean Sky.
Yeah? Oh, yeah, those are good. Okay.
It's a really iconic intro, though.
It's so good. Okay, hang on, just 2 seconds here. Listen to this. This is the part that kills me. It's so specific. The fact that you can hear the person taking a breath that's performing the flute, you can hear that, or even like in Arnie Village, you can hear the sliding on the strings of the guitar. Like that was a level of intimacy in music that I did not expect from this era. And so that leads me to believe that it's not synthesized. Maybe some tracks are, but am I naive for thinking that this is recorded? with musicians?
I want to believe.
I always thought it was. At least this song. Like some of the other stuff we're listening to, the overworld, like that, I could understand that being synthesized.
Yeah. Oh, hang on. This is good, it turns out. Yeah. Mitsuda does not mess around. It's just it's
So right being this good.
it's unbelievable.
So like
Actually,
I have like a serious question about this because
Yeah.
I know that people toss around like best of all time lists and things like that. But like,
Right.
I seriously have trouble thinking of like legitimate challengers to Chrono Cross as like the best video game soundtrack.
There's only one, and it's cheating, but Smash Brothers. If you count Smash Brothers Ultimate, oh, interesting. People say no. That's just too cheap. Too cheap.
no,
Okay.
because it's a bunch of
how about
songs thrown
Chrono
together.
Trigger?
It's like not unified.
Yeah.
Well, but I mean, I think so much of what makes Chrono Cross's soundtrack great is the ways it riffs on Chrono Trigger. Like what I was just saying earlier about how the homeworld theme, like Chrono Cross's soundtrack is wonderful as a standalone thing, but the thing that really makes it is the way those motifs leak in there. And you, Kyle, you are so in for it later. Some of the tracks. Oh my god! But like I when we were listening to the Another World overworld theme too, like I love it's this constant dialogue. It's like musical dialogue. It's so cool. Like the homeworld theme is the Chrono Trigger theme flipped around with this tropical thing. But then when you get to Another World, it's a different melody, like it's a Chrono Cross melody. It's not a repurposed Chrono Trigger melody, but the underlying music track is like the opening like dun da 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 thing is what was playing in Homeworld underneath the Chrono Trigger melody. So it's all just like talking to each other and like riffing on itself, and it's so smart. It's just brilliant.
Yeah. It feels like Mitsuda is just giving it his all. And like I love the Xenogears soundtrack. I also think that soundtrack's fantastic. Like the flight music in Xenogears is so good. Chrono Trigger is obviously great. And Chrono Trigger, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's that weird story of Mitsuda had to really fight to compose it, and then he worked so hard that he had stomach ulcers, and Uematsu had to come in and record a couple of the tracks towards the end, so it wasn't fully Mitsuda. So this feels like one of those just like early in his career, he has all the energy in the world, and it's just basically carte blanche for, hey, make the soundtrack for kind of the successor to Chrono Trigger, kind of your first big project. And he just could not have been more emotionally invested in just making it so unique and so different.
Also, I'm just going to throw a because Ben told me before this podcast I could just riff on whatever tangents I wanted. I'm going to tell a very stupid story about Chrono Cross's music.
Here we go.
Before I ever played Chrono Cross, before I ever played Chrono Trigger, had any idea what any of this was, I was a stupid 10-year-old kid on Neopets. And this is back in the days of like the old Neopets message boards and like role-playing boards and guilds and pet pages. And everybody back then had a pet page. We were all learning HTML. And the song to play in MIDI format on your pet page was a MIDI version of Time Scar. And everybody was using Time Scar because we were all like 10, 11, 12 years old and wanted to be deep and meaningful and emotional. And that was a very deep video game song. And so we were all playing Time Scar and thought we were very cool.
I get it.
The MIDI version of that really captures
it's beautiful.
The era.
By the way, I don't know if it was our friend Tim Turry that wrote this PlayStation blog post, but I thought it was brilliant, where they had that whole blog post from the developer of the Chrono Cross remaster talking about trying to revive this game and how, we lost all those original files and all this stuff. And the subhead for that section was called Scars of Time. It feels like a Tim move, but I don't know. I don't want to put it in. Everybody else can be clever over there with PlayStation. Zach Gallo says, big Chrono Trigger fan here. That said, I knew next to nothing about Chrono Cross going into the deepest dive. Safe to say I love the game so far. The music and atmosphere stand out to me in particular. Scars of Time really sets the tone for this game and completely blew me away. The first time Shore of Dreams kicks on for the world map for the Another World, I got chills. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But here's an interesting one. Zach says, the only track that doesn't really work for me is Whirlwind, which is the battle theme. Something about the violins on this track sounds like nails on a chalkboard to me. As one YouTube commenter puts it, it sounds like the music that plays when you're being chased by clowns in hell. Otherwise, perfect soundtrack. And then,
I think it's fine. I think the thing that gets me, and I guess this isn't really a spoiler, but like, this is the battle theme. Like, this is just what it is. It's not going to change. Yeah. Really?
Right.
I mean,
right.
there's like boss themes, whatever, but like this is it. This is what we're stuck with for the whole game.
It's a lot.
I think it's a very weird missed opportunity not to change that theme on certain, like when you go to another world, for instance, or at other plot points later. Like, it's just weird that this is just the one we got the whole game.
Totally. Especially, you know, like in like Final Fantasy VIII, where when you play as other characters or go to different areas and that, it has a different battle theme, a fantastic battle theme. But yeah, it just seems like it separate between the worlds that way. It makes total sense. Here's just to remind people, here's what it sounds like.
Good baseline.
Oh yeah, you can really hear that Chrono Trigger baseline.
It is funny what this where my head goes when I hear this is immediately the camera rotating around Radius in Arnie Village.
Oh, sure.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yep. That's where that music.
Is that why his
me.
name is Radius?
Oh, smart, yeah. But it has the vocals coming in later and stuff there a little bit. It's I'm as much as I adore the soundtrack. I think it's the greatest soundtrack for any game ever. I'm not going Smash Bros. Ultimate. Like that one, I'm a little neutral, just north of neutral maybe on the main battle theme. And Sean Studstill writes in with an interesting take saying, I want to show some love to the main battle theme titled Whirlwind. I always thought it felt more chaotic than other JRPG battle themes at the same time. After some investigation, I found out that the song is in 9/8 time signature.
Whoa.
Which is so uncommon that I can't recall any other piece of music that uses it. I know Kyle has a drumming background and he may appreciate how strange this is. But has anyone else on the panel noticed how strong and strange this song is rhythmically?
I'll have to listen for that like more closely. But yeah, that's very strange.
Yeah, I guess that's why it feels so bizarre compared to like Final Fantasy where it's like, okay, always the battle themes are always so close to each other in same time signature and all that fun stuff. Nick Ludeman says, I frequently found myself stopping in each area to listen to the entire song before moving on, particularly the one after you defeat Zoa in the Shadow Forest called The Departed One. It has this beautifully melancholic sound that you can just get lost in. That's true. It is quite nice. Also,
I don't want to spoil anything, but Zoa, he's my favorite.
Really?
I love Zoa. And I don't know if it's just the ridiculous thing that his like dialect filter is just, I talk like this.
Yeah.
But is like Zoa, once I get him, is always in my if you can get him.
It's unclear. It's unclear.
Yeah.
I do like, his buddies Salt and Pepor. Oh, that's Karsh that has the buddy Salt and Pepor.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I like it. I felt like it was that fight though, where Zoa was like, okay, cool it with the comedy routine, Salt and Pepor. Am I nuts? Does Zoa fight with Salt and Pepor at a certain point? Is that always Karsh?
I think that they show up with the just the Dragoon Devas. I think that they're just sort of part of that crew.
Okay, yeah. Brain Freeze watching us live says, yeah, they show up with everybody. Okay, yeah. But I just love that.
Can we pause while we're talking about Salt and Pepor?
Yes, I don't know why you'd want to.
To discuss the fact that their musical theme, since we're talking about music right now, is Delightful Specchio from Chrono Trigger.
Is it?
It is. It's the same song that's Specchio's main theme.
Oh my God, I didn't even notice that. Hang on, let me see. Delightful
Specchio is.
Specchio.
Specchio is after all, he's the master of war.
He's like the trainer guy.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, at the end of time, he's the weirdo in that room whose form keeps changing.
Yeah. So this is from Chrono Trigger then.
I think this is Specchio, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out both these games have really good soundtracks. Kyle, since you're coming in relatively fresh, hang on. Is the Chrono Cross soundtrack working for you? You think it's overrated at this point? Is it hitting its target? Uh-oh.
It's hitting its target. The thing that I like about it is the callbacks to Chrono Trigger, because I love the Chrono Trigger soundtrack so much,
Sure.
and I love the introductory song. Like, I half joke that it's like, oh, I never made it past the start screen when I originally played it. I'm not completely joking. Like, I would just leave it on sometimes because I just thought it was really cool while I was doing other stuff. But overall, yeah, I like it. I'm not like quite over the moon for it. I don't think it's like the greatest soundtrack of all time. I think the things that really work about it are the things that are calling back to Chrono Trigger. But yeah, I mean, I
disagree
feel
on that
I'm not negative on it at all.
All right, I'm not accusing you. That's fine. James Gameboy writes in from the proud Gameboy line saying, I found myself...
That's a very good name.
Yeah. I found myself having an odd reaction to the game so far. I like the story and love the combat, but I'm kind of cold on the music. Chrono Trigger is a favorite score of mine, but Cross hasn't really hit for me yet. Would you say that your favorite score moments happen deeper into the game, or am I missing something? Gonna try listening to something outside of the game as well? I mean, there's definitely great tracks coming up. I mean, Nikki's theme is fantastic, but I feel like you should get the flavor by now. If you're not digging it, maybe it's just not your style.
I mean, the ones, I mean, Scars of Time.
Yeah.
In the intro. I think that the start screen one I really like too. Just that sort of like ambient when you're underwater. That like,
yes. Yeah. Well, here's one. Alan Liebold wrote about it, saying Time Scar, of course, is incredible. But if you wait on the title screen, you'll get an attract mode thing similar to what Chrono Trigger had. The music that plays is called Time of the Dream Watch or Dream Watch of Time. It's already yet another great track, but then it goes and throws in a bit of Chrono Trigger main theme for the extra nostalgic cherry on top. So if you just let it sit, then it starts to play this song, which is good.
Oh, this is Halo music.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is Marty O'Donnell's Halo score. Come on. Forget, okay, episode 5 of The Deepest Dive is just going to be the full soundtrack to Chrono Cross. We'll just play it.
But
And that's all nodding approvingly.
the bottom line is like I think like Ben said, the soundtrack is all very good, but I do think it's really front loaded in like those songs and the two overworld themes.
Yes.
Like Home and Another World are like those are probably among my favorites. So if those aren't doing it for you, it's not like I don't think there's anything transformative.
Yeah.
I think if you're there's one specific track I have in mind late, like I don't think we get to it till like week 3 or week 4 of this, that if you are a person who loves the Chrono Trigger references, Kyle, you and I are going to talk in a couple weeks.
Okay.
I've got things to say.
All right.
Yeah.
Jordan Brown writes it. By the way, Rebecca, I've never seen a cat receive so much love in my life as the amount that you're just slathering.
She is my baby.
Okay.
This is my little baby. She's very attached to me. I started going into the office full time this week, and so she misses me during the day. She also doesn't understand how computers work, and so anytime I'm in here talking to the computer, she thinks I'm talking to her. So she thinks I've summoned her for cuddles.
That makes sense. Jordan Brown writes in and says, deep cut here, Jordan, thanks for listening, saying, on the Final Fantasy VII Remake Deepest Dive, Ben said that one of his favorite things in sci-fi is when people cross over into another universe or into a portal and come out on the other side and it looks like nothing has changed. Do you think this is the best that trope has ever been used? Thank you for reminding me of what I love, Jordan Brown, because yeah, I guess without spoiling anything, there's a moment that we talk about in the Final Fantasy VII Remake where I love that idea, and it goes back to Twilight Zone. There's an episode of the Twilight Zone called The Parallel, where there's a pilot who goes into space and then blacks out and comes back down and is like, oh, all right, I guess that's fine. I guess I'll go visit my family. And he goes back to his house, and the only thing that's different is his fence is different. And he's like, what's with the fence? And his family's like, what are you talking about? What are we doing with that fence? It's like, I don't think that's right. And then like his daughter notices that he's kind of acting funny, but his wife is totally on board until they kiss. Then his wife is like, you are not the same person. Something is wrong here. And it turns out he went to an alternate reality. And it's a very good episode called The Parallel. Cool. But yeah, is that a trope? Is this the best it's been done of an alternate universe that's just so beautifully subtle, at least at first?
Well, there's that Simpsons episode where they have lizard tongues.
Yep, also beautifully subtle. Speaking of lizard tongues, is the idea... well, I mean, Lowry wrote in about how there's that lizard inhabiting your bedroom and he'll let you stay there, but then he charges you 100 gold in Chrono Cross here. Is the idea
that guy, when he showed up, I was like, you guys talk?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like,
very greedy.
Is the idea that Surge's life was preventing lizards from talking? Like, is that supposed to be a cause and effect that because Surge died at a young age, then these Komodo dragons learned to talk in another world? Or can they also talk in Homeworld? I don't know.
Yes.
You got it first time.
Okay, thank you, Rebecca. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, but I mean, I think it's kind of doing like this weird like butterfly effect thing. Like I was, I really enjoyed. I can't remember the exact specifics of this because I played this like 2 weeks ago, at the very beginning. But I remember one of the most striking things about immediate, like the transition, like after he warps through the beach or whatever, and then you turn back around and you immediately have to go back to the Komodo Dragon Rock again and do the whole dungeon again. But you walk in and the enemy placement is like very reminiscent of what you just went through with the dragons. Like the part where you have to chase the dragon around the circle, the dragons are gone, but there's enemies chasing each other around the circle. There's an area where you have to climb up and then jump on the dragon from above. But now if you go over there, an enemy jumps on you from above, and it's very parallel. And so it is this weird like butterfly effect thing. Like maybe Surge didn't directly have an impact on this, but in some way, him being missing from this other world allowed a completely different ecosystem to thrive.
Right. He wasn't just harvesting them for their scales in this world.
Yeah, but there's also an implication too, I think, that Surge's death is not the only difference, right? Like this is another alternate timeline where other people made different choices as well. And so it's not just him, but he is a part of this situation where everything's the same, but it's also like a little bit different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Joe.
Well, I had a slightly different topic, but I was curious, Ben, do you like people to ask about weirdly specific things on the deepest dive?
Yeah, I love it. How'd you know that?
So, because there's something that's been bothering me ever since I first played this game.
Yeah.
And that's, so you watch that intro movie and it's got little snippets of a bunch of basically all of the pre-rendered cutscenes from the game. And there's one little bit from that movie that I don't think I've ever seen in the game. So what I was hoping to do is to show you folks, and hopefully the community can look at it also. And then we can all keep an eye on it, and someone can tell me if there's a part in this game where it actually happens.
Yeah, what is it?
This was like a cutscene. I have a GIF of it. I'll drop it here in Discord.
Oh boy, this won't work, Joe.
This bit, it looks like it's out in front of. It looks like it's in front of Zappa's shop in Termina.
Did you drop it? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Hold on. There we go.
Got it. Oh, where it's Surge and he's like charging the camera.
So he's holding his swallow. It looks like he's out in front of Zappa's in Termina.
Right.
And he does like a little jump with the swallow. And I just
that is weird.
I don't think it's so if as we're playing through this game, if anyone sees this, let me know, because I didn't know if maybe it was like part of a path that I missed or something.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, that's good. Hey, that's good. Jarsh writes in and says, there's something quietly devastating about being pulled into another world and no one remembering who you are and your house no longer being your home. Incredible opening. Loving the game so far. Yeah, I love everyone just calling him a ghost. I think that's cool. Especially that stuff with Lynx by the end where he's like, what do you really want, Surge? Answer me, the assassin of time.
I also love how Lena, you're like, you kind of look like my dead old neighbor. And you're like, I am him. And she's like, no, you're not.
What a deeply offensive thing perceivably to say, right? Like, well, what was his name? It was Surge. My name's Surge. I'm Surge. What? That's such a sick thing to say. He's dead.
I didn't know. I forgot to go check the cliff. I forgot that it shows on there that as somebody mentioned earlier, it says Surge and Lena forever or whatever. I think that's really cool. Yeah. Also, I forgot that you can go to the waterfall area and it's not marked on the world map, but you can go there and there's what are they, bunny people or something? They're we used to really like worshiping our dragon god here, and then the humans came down with humans or something, but I like just the secret spots on the world map. Alex Smith says, I really like how the game shows subtlety and not subtlety between the two universes. Like how the waitress in the bar in Arnie wants to be a poet in the home universe and how she's given up on that dream years ago in the other universe. It makes chatting with everyone in both universes fun and engaging in a way that most JRPGs struggle with, and added a really cool sense of unease in the first hour of being in the other universe. That is true. It makes every conversation with every NPC like a little bit of a mystery for like, okay, I remember what you said here, but now I'm going to check and see what you say there.
And I think it's structurally so smart because the developers have got to know that when someone sits down to play an RPG, like the only time in that game that they are thorough about talking to every townsperson, it's going to be in that first town, because that's how you're feeling it out, right? That's how you're like, okay, how responsive is this game? How different, like, do they change when I talk to them multiple times? Like all that stuff. So you're going to talk to everyone in that first village, and they're good enough at designing memorable interactions with those people so that when you see the flip side of them, like you remember them clearly, you've talked to them before, like, or a different version of them. Like, it's just a really, really well designed bit, I think, to, again, like I said, also because they're all talking about weird existential stuff.
Right.
It's like it really gets you thinking along those lines anyway, too. Just very good.
Yeah, even like the very small interactions too. Like there's an older couple in Arnie Village that when you talk to them in one of the worlds, they're like, "Man, it's very hot. Like I wish it would rain. These old bones can't handle the heat." But then their other world counterparts are like, "Gosh, it's raining constantly. We hate that. I wish it would stop raining and just be hot. Like we can't handle all this rain. We're too old." And it's just it's this lovely contrary nature. It's like an insignificant conversation.
Yeah,
it's
I love
cute.
it. Timothy Smith writes in and says, Chrono Trigger was masterful for its time, giving NPCs in the world more context as you visit more timelines to see how they all impact and reference each other. Chrono Cross in this regard does it better. I think the craft of each NPC and small world details between the two universes is done so well. Philosophical debates, ambitions, life-changing experiences, racism, etc. Every character is expressing something interesting and only becomes more so when you meet their counterpart to see how better or worse things become. Yeah, I forgot about that part with... help me out. What is the boat kid's name again?
Korcha.
Yeah, with Korcha, where you're like, you lousy demigod, get out of here. Or then in another Termina, where there's like the lion guy, like hauling stuff. And there's the one guy who's like, yeah, I need to watch these guys because they're lazy. And if I'm not here doing my job, then they're not going to do their job. Like, I forgot about the weird demigod racism in the world of Chrono Cross.
Demi-human, right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, demi-human. I'm sorry. Not demigod. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Does that just mean part animal? Is Korcha part animal?
No. They think Korcha's just a demi-human sympathizer. He's from a town where like humans and demi-humans live together.
I see. Okay.
But like Lynx is a demi-human.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you. Matt Corrado writes in and says, in Fossil Valley, near where you can pick up Skelly's heavy skull. Yep, that's right. There's an enemy named Drongo. It's a rather simply designed enemy, a yellow cactus-like thing with a freakish tongue. It gave me nightmares as a kid, and it still does to this day. Maybe it was all the talk of the ghostly supernatural things from the Dragoons nearby that primed me to hate it. What are everyone's thoughts on the enemy design? Matt, I think you're alone for having nightmares about Drongo, the yellow cactus thing with an enemy, but I'm sure it's terrifying. I touched on it a little bit already, but I like the enemy design so far. Nothing out of this world at this point, but... and then Matt says, also, the conversation between Lena and Serge on the beach about their promise definitely conjured up thoughts of Tifa and Cloud. It's very Nibelheim conversation between Tifa and Cloud there, for sure. You can't get out of that shadow. Darwin writes in and says, hey, did anyone feed the dragons 100 times without having to slow down time? I got to about 40 when I started having some issues with the button inputs not registering properly or just delayed. You didn't think of slowing down the time, Kyle?
No,
It really
I fed them like
helps.
30, right? It was like 10, 20, 30, 40, right? I did like 30, I think.
Okay.
I did not have time for this. No, I did 10. I did 10. I got the key. I left.
Oh, I went full hundo. And you got like iron armor, I think. I forget exactly what it is.
It's not even that good. It's like iron vest.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
It seems fine. But I love the idea of that dragon tamer who's like, look, you can try and feed them once. We had somebody feed these dragons 99 times and they had a heart attack and died. It's like, what? What a weird story. Also, the thing that made me laugh about those dragons is like just in Termina, I think it was in Termina, not Arnie, but there was some There's like a mom and a kid that were arguing about whether or not dragons existed because they're talking about the great dragons of the world. They're like, oh, dragons are a myth. Those aren't real. It's like, what? Just right over here, there's a whole pen filled with dragons. But I guess
he meant like big dragons.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? I mean,
But you do see one of
dragon
those.
gods.
You fly, one of those flies over in that cutscene when you get to see Viper Manor for the first time. So they should just look up.
Everyone in Chrono Cross is constantly having a normal one.
Yes, that's right. That's
True.
right.
Every one of them.
Ian T. Clark, here you go, Joe. Ian T. Clark, I know you've been waiting for his comment, says, it's cool how you can see your party's reflections on parts of the Viper Manor floor tiles as you walk across the hallways. Hell yeah, it is.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
Oh, really? Oh, it definitely stood out. All right, Matt Lurch here is getting to it, saying, I really like the little girl Marcy who just wants to murder you. The whole scene of the prophet being like, hold on, I have to explain all of space and time really quick, and then you can murder them was great.
Yes.
Yeah, Kyle, what'd you think about that whole sequence with certain, what's it called? Emperor of Time? What's the term that they use?
Prophet.
Prophet of Time.
Oh, Prophet Time. Yeah, no, it was cool. It was nice. It was that was kind of the point of like, I've got some answers for the myriad questions that you've had up to this point. So
Yeah.
that was like it was a good conversation.
Yeah, I mean,
This is a very good. Then I was gonna say this is a very good choice for where to cut off for
Thank
a
you.
first like quarter moment. It feels like an Act 1 finale. Like,
Yes.
I forgot
Yeah.
when you said Viper Manor. I remembered initially to me. I remembered the dungeon. Like I remember getting into it, but
Yeah.
I forgot what a very like climactic moment the end of Viper Manor actually is.
Yes.
and
Same thing
how
here.
good it is at setting up the next act of the game. And
Any-
this is very good.
yeah, I think
Well
somebody in the
done.
community suggested it. It wasn't me remembering it. So thank you. I'm sorry, I forget your name, whoever suggested that. But yeah, any climactic moment in an old JRPG where it's not a voluntary save, but just like fades to black and then you choose to save, like that is a perfect stopping point for any Deepest Dive. So I love that it got there for this one. Craig Belmont writes in and says, hey, maybe one of the most fever dream moments I've ever experienced in a JRPG is entering the Viper Manor library, learning Surge has fallen into a black hole and entered a parallel timeline while floating in ethereal space, then immediately being bullied by a chick in a pink doll dress and being allowed to fight in a library that dragoons aren't allowed in that the said bully is a part of. Video games are cool. Yeah, that's right. Great. Video games are cool. I am confused about the relationship between the old Prophet of Time and Marcy. Are they just like living together in this library? Do they have any connection beyond that?
I think that they're just sort of like the C-suite executives of Viper Manor. Right? Like you've got General Viper, Riddle, the Prophet of Time, and the three, dragon devas, and it's like they're the ones in charge.
Right.
I do like the setup though of Viper Manor because you very much by the end of Viper Manor you get the idea that like Marcy and Karsh and all these people, these are not like villains. Like these are they're problematic people in various ways, but like they don't really give a crap about you. Like that's not what their thing is. The issue is links. Like you talk to NPCs around Viper Manor and there seems to be this idea like, yeah, we were just like minding our own business, like running Viper Manor, like Riddle's really nice. It's really sad what happened to her fiance, brother, fiance.
Fiance, yep.
Fiance.
Yeah, it's Glenn's brother, yeah.
Fiance, like we all have these relationships, we have this life that was going on. And then Lynx just showed up one day and we think there's something shady going on and there's like maybe a spy in the kitchen trying to figure that out. We don't know. There's like monsters in the manor that weren't here before.
Yeah.
We don't really know what's going on. So yeah, like you show up in the library and Marcy is kind of just like doing her job, but it's like, yeah, it's like a weird situation where you're like have to fight them because you have to get through them, but you understand that these are not like bad guys.
Right. Yeah, I thought that even that storyline was effective of Glenn just being like, I really wish I could talk to my brother right now because there's so much weird stuff going on, but it's so sad. And I forgot about that whole dynamic with Riddle, who kind of looks like she's dressed like a mermaid. It's kind of confusing because there's that moment where like, hey, let's show you a mermaid in Termin, and it turns out it's nothing. But then Riddle kind of looks like one.
Mermaids don't exist.
That's right. That's too wacky for this world.
We will not see a mermaid.
The mermaid thing is sad though in Termina because like Corsa shows up and he's like, hey, like this is messed up. Why have you imprisoned this sentient being?
Right.
And are showing it off like a circus. Like this is a person. And the sideshow guy is just like, no.
Right.
So I'm pretty sure it was just like a fish with a doll taped to it or something. He didn't have a real mermaid there.
Yeah.
Do you think? I thought it was. It's very quick. I thought it was a mermaid.
I don't think they showed us. Not clearly.
Maybe they didn't.
Yeah, but in terms of, everybody being in Viper Manor and talking to you, but they're not really bad. Even like, I liked Harley. By the way, you need to come to an agreement. Joe, I heard you say Harl earlier, the French.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I call her Harl.
But she's a Harley Quinn. Like, it has
Marl?
it has to be Harley, right?
You call her Harley Quinn?
I just
Or
call her
like
Harley.
That's how you say that word, Harley Quinn?
Harlequin.
Harlequin.
Harlequin. Harl.
Yeah, I guess Harley Quinn. I'm thinking of the character. There's a huge difference. There's a huge difference. Anyway, so Harley Quinn walks in, but I love her fun confrontational tone immediately. And just immediately offsetting where Kid is. Because the first time you meet Kid, I feel like she's so awesome, just immediately ready to kick ass and not ask any questions, just ready to get in there and fight. And then Harley immediately comes in. She's like, oh, Serge, you could do so much better than this trash kid. And Kid's like, what? I'll punch you to the moons.
Did you find her? Did you find Harl sleeping on the on the couch? Where it's just like you talk to her and the first thing she says is like, shut up, go away."
I feel like I've talked about it way too much for our deepest dives and stuff. But we had a very dorky thing where my kids, my friends and I, back when we were kids playing all RPGs, we would always like claim characters. Like, I'm them, that person symbolizes me or whatever. And it was like Harley was like right on, like, I'm her. I call Harley. So just full dibs on Harley, just so everybody knows she's kind of my girl for this game. So.
Dibs on Pierre.
Damn it! Interata writes in and says, if you run from the Lynx fight in Viper Manor to switch which elements you have equipped, there's a shadow behind you designed the same as the shadow that leaves Lynx after the fight. I don't know what it means, but I remember seeing and going, that's odd, that it's blocking my way out. And after the fight going, it's part of whatever that thing is.
Oh, that's cool.
Interesting. I do love, Jordan Brown writes in and says, you can run from any battle, including boss fights. Having trouble with the boss fight? Run. Have the wrong elements allocated? Run. Absolutely love this feature. And it makes some boss fights much less frustrating if you get unlucky with field effects or misses and you want to regroup. That is very nice. I have not even considered running from a boss fight, but that is such a smart detail.
It's also a good strategy to use against the dumb boxer boys if you choose the wrong one.
Diabolical. Gioran writes in and says, had plans to write in about something else completely, but Lynx decided otherwise. This was the first big bad boss battle of the game, the first real challenge. He didn't attack me, he just used his debuffs the whole fight, until the very end when he finally hit Surge with an instant death spell. I immediately revived Surge and finished off Lynx. Absolutely bonkers RNG, kind of undermining his threatening dialogue after the fight. That's weird that, he only did debuffs and stuff throughout the entire fight, but I
died twice because I lost everyone except frickin' Pierre, and then he would give himself 200 HP back, and Pierre was only doing like 3 and 4 damage.
Oh no!
Like,
Wow.
3 or 4 damage, really?
That's very bad, Kyle.
That's Pierre.
Well,
Have you considered buying a sword or something?
I gotta get him out of my party. I don't want him.
I don't think you can. I feel like you're pot committed at this point. It'd be nice if you just stuck with Pierre through the rest of the game. We'd appreciate it.
Well, during the deepest dive for Chrono Trigger, you gave me explicit instructions to do things for the sake of the deepest dive that I accidentally just fully ignored.
Wait, which I don't even remember.
You told me to make sure to not let Magus in my party or something, and I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll do that, because then I'll get the other perspective on the story, but I misunderstood, so we ended up just all going down the same path.
That's right. Thanks to everybody for rewatching or re-listening to that, by the way. There's been a lot of people who have been going back to that one before Chrono Cross came out, which is fun. Let's see. Tom Rickard says, some of the battle techs are legitimately hilarious / cool to watch. Lena's maiden hand move makes the most comical slapping noise I've ever heard in a game. The blowback tech makes enemies fly off screen in a real Looney Tunes type of way. They're all good. I love too, just Surge's, I forget what his first tech is called there, but I love just the way the camera is right there. Then he slashes right into it. It's such a cool look. Also, the swallow, his weapon, is that a real thing?
It's like an oar, like a boating oar,
right?
Of course. Is that what it's supposed to be?
Has anyone fought in a battle with one of those throughout the history of humanity, though?
No.
Yes.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Derek Galatovich writes in and says, I just want to thank the crew for covering this game. I have never tried it and have fallen in love with it. I think the ability to avoid battles in this remaster is more handy than it's ever been in any of the re-released RPGs. Beat a few enemies, get your stat upgrades up, then avoid battles when they're no longer rewarding you with XP. Guilt-free without worrying you'll ever be under-leveled. Love this leveling system. So many clever systems at play. When all is said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if this is my favorite Square game ever.
Wow.
Very interesting.
I want to touch on that just for a second, because I think, like we'd said before, talking about this or a game like Final Fantasy VIII that had a predecessor that just set impossibly high expectations. I think that there's an idea around Chrono Cross, at least I remember distinctly when it released, there was like, there was a disappointing element to it, right? Like,
yes.
It's not as good as Chrono Trigger. Oh, they don't have as many dual techs and triple techs in this game. This game's really blowing it, and I think that this is just such an overlooked gem of an RPG from this era, because I think in a lot of ways that Chrono name, when it got released, ended up working against it, because it like set a comparison point that set people up to be disappointed. And I think that kind of stopped a lot of people from recognizing or acknowledging all of the amazing things this game does. We've touched on it already, but just like, man, some of those quality of life, like, hey, just automatically heal after a battle with the things that you can use. And so like we've talked about using the fast forward and the slow motion stuff. Those aren't just features of the remaster that we're playing. They were in the original game. You had to beat it once first, but like you could speed up and speed up and slow down the game in New Game Plus before.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh,
cool.
yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So just like, and Ben, you brought it up earlier, but just one of my absolute favorite things. I think this game probably has my favorite magic system of any RPG, because of the fact that you aren't limited by MP, right? So it's a lot more strategic about the kinds of spell you're using, where they're placed on your grid, how many of a particular thing that you have, and the fact that because of that, dungeons don't become some like war of attrition of like, diminishing resources. So every like that fight against Lynx, you can go into that fight and they can design it as such where it's like, we know that when you get into this fight, you're going to have all of your resources at your disposal.
Yeah.
But then that also holds true for just like incidental battles too. They know that you're not going to be like, oh no, I don't have any elements. I don't have any MP. I can't do anything.
Yeah.
So like, I think all of those things just make it such an approachable and clever thing that I'm just kind of baffled that it didn't get ripped off a lot more.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. Timothy Smith says, I remember at the time loving that the key items had neat little art for each one. They didn't need to do it. It's great seeing the detail of it, and I always wish more PS1 and PS2 era RPGs did it. I think the time shifter item and art is new. Yeah, what is the time shifter?
What is the time shifter?
That's the fast forward and rewind.
Oh, it's an item.
Oh,
I knew the feature had
okay.
been there. I didn't realize it was basically encapsulated in a key item. That's cool.
Oh, okay.
That's how you could do it before. Is like you got the time shifter when you got New Game Plus.
Interesting. Okay, that helps.
I was sitting here like puzzling through to my inventory. I was like, what is this? Is this a new thing? What?
Yeah.
Oh,
That's funny. I guess I could have just looked at it. I don't know.
No, I was confused too. Chase Klein writes in and says, there's a lot of little nods to Chrono Trigger in the opening section. All right, tell me if you think these are legit or if Chase is seeing ghosts here. Serge's mom has a regular NPC model and his dad is not mentioned at all. It's Chrono Trigger-esque, I guess.
Okay, fine. Yeah.
The bridge over to Prophet's Tower where you fight Marcy is somewhat similar to the dungeon bridge where you fight the dragon tank in Chrono Trigger.
Actually,
absolutely.
that's true. Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
The drop into the dungeon cell is similar as well, depending on whether you have Kid in your party or not. You either fight your way out or you bang on the cell doors until Kid comes and releases you. Okay, interesting.
Oh, I didn't think about that one.
They make multiple references to Hekran, which is a boss from Chrono Trigger that you have to fight before jumping into the whirlpool back to the main continent in the game. You need a Hekran bone to recruit Poshul, and I noticed one when the Viper churro vendor said the recipe called for one. There's probably others that I just haven't found yet as well.
Yeah, Pushel in another world also hints at it. Like if you find her doghouse, she has like a sign. I don't remember what it says, but it's something like "No Heckrons allowed" or "Heckrons are bad," or I mean some indicator in another world that she hates them.
Heckran of all things, sure. I mean, the most obvious thing, we haven't really mentioned it, but the fact that Lynx calls Surge the Chrono Trigger seems important. Or he says, "What do you live for? What do you die for? Come to me, the assassin of time, the Chrono Trigger."
Specifically yells Chrono Trigger, not just in all caps, but with like many exclamation marks, which is just very funny to me. I think you all had actually posted a GIF of that advertising this at some point, and I saw that and I thought, this feels like I don't remember that line being said. This must be like some jokey fan thing that someone made. And then funny. I got to that point like the next day and was like, oh no, he just screams this at you. It's
and I genuinely don't remember how this works, but it's like, okay, so is he saying that Surge is an assassin of time and that is called the Chrono Trigger? But that's confusing because like in Chrono Trigger, the Chrono Trigger was like the little egg thing that you get, right? So it's like, all right, I don't know. Maybe it'll be explained later. I'm confused right now about what exactly. Kyle, do you remember what the Chrono Trigger was?
I don't. I mean, it's just it's some action or some thing that propels the plot forward, right?
Trust me, I had to look up the wiki, even though we did the deepest dive a couple years ago. But it's an egg-like item. This is in Chrono Trigger, given to Luca and her party by Gaspar to help bring Chrono back to life. Chris Rodriguez says, "Hey, growing up, I never liked games like this, kind of turn-based RPGs, but I decided I would give it a chance now that I'm older, and man, I love it so far. I started listening to you during the last leg of Hanson's Game Informer days, and because of you all, I found my favorite game of all time, Undertale, and I gave Final Fantasy VII a try, and I fell in love with that game too. Thanks for the great content and getting me to try new things." Hey, Chris, thanks for playing along. We appreciate it. Christopher Semelli says, "This music is more incredible than I remember. Everything else, I'm not really blown away by. Chrono Trigger is my favorite game of all time, so definitely have a bias, but I just don't like anyone from the cast so far. They also have really dumb names. Please don't beat me up." Hey, that's fine. You're welcome to tackle all these names. Somebody pointed out that apparently the original version of the game, you'd only had like 6 characters to name your characters with, and then in the remaster, you can do like 6 to 12 or something. So you can give some of these characters better names if you're interested. Does that seem right, Joe?
Surge.
You can do a full Surge of Poo if you want. Yeah, whatever you want. No, you're allowed to be skeptical of this whole thing. That's fine, Christopher. Hopefully it'll win you over. But yeah, I think that's kind of that Chrono Trigger pressure that Joe was talking about for sure. So, I hope you enjoy the rest of the ride.
I mean, we talked a little bit about Shadow Hearts. We mentioned that earlier too, and I think that's another fun like contemporary sort of this game to think about. Also, that's another series that gets very weird. That if you're hungry for more weird JRPGs, check those out.
Yeah, I was talking to Kat Bailey from IGN. Rebecca, you know her. She was in Minnesota.
That's my boss.
Yeah, well, there we go.
I love a Kat Bailey.
I just got lunch with her yesterday, and she brought up like just this summer with Square, that Square in 2000 in the States, they released so many RPGs on the PlayStation 1. Another one was Threads of Fate, which is a game that I love, but it's weird to think like, oh yeah, the same summer, Square releases 2 RPGs about Fate. It's very odd, but... My Sinclair writes in and says, "Unfortunately, my first comment is not positive. I'm channeling Kyle Hilliard's pure hatred." My wrote. It seems bold. No, this is probably a top 5 GOAT for me, but it is very much not colorblind friendly. I really hope they would address this with the remaster so I could get friends to enjoy this game I love so dearly. It's an interesting take. Yeah, it seems like understanding the colors is a very important aspect for the combat in this game, so I understand that'd be really frustrating.
Yeah, I can see that being a big problem, yeah.
But, it wasn't the biggest budget remaster. Dennis M. writes in with a very important one, saying, "Hey, did any of you change the style of the window frame in the menu? I did not like the standard frame, so I'm glad they gave us options. I chose the simple black one. It looks so much better in my opinion. After that change, I could finally start to enjoy the game, and I love it so far." Yeah, there we go, Dennis.
I completely forgot you can unlock more window frames.
Yes.
T for 3. T for 3.
What is it called? T for 3?
There's one called T for 3. It's actually kind of stupid, but I always like that name.
I got a good good kick out of a Skullduggery. The one that's just like a heavy metal album where it's just skulls everywhere and stuff. God, such a good word, such a good name for a window frame.
I forgot that you could find more of these things. I found the one that's on the merchant in Arnie and looked at it and thought, oh, I forgot you could do that, and then promptly forgot it again. I've done nothing with this feature.
Yeah, you're fine. I like the black window. It feels more like Chrono Trigger. It feels like a classy way to go.
Change to that.
Yeah, you should. I mean, the first one's got a lot of style. If you like your text on bamboo shoots or whatever's going on there. Derek Galatovich writes in and says, oh man, I played nearly 40 hours of this with the left stick sensitivity set to digital and then finally just changed it. I didn't even think to switch it. If you haven't yet, please set it to analog. Getting around could have been so much smoother this whole time. I had no idea. Okay.
Let's try this. Okay.
That does sound great.
Want to change it to analog?
Switch it to analog. And that just means for running, you can just slow down. Is that the idea?
Find out.
I don't know. We're going to find out how to
right.
make Chrono Cross better with this one simple trick.
It makes it great, apparently. Hey, that's it for comments submitted over on Patreon. Anybody else have a hot topic, hot thought we haven't got to yet for this first chunk of Chrono Cross?
What characters does everyone have at this point? I'm curious.
Great question.
Pierre.
A lot.
Yeah.
Pierre.
Kyle's actually cloned Pierre, and he has 3 of them in his party.
Am I doing it right? Is that
Yeah. No, so Pierre and Kid, is that right, Kyle?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I got the Army of the Freaks. I got Poshel and Mojo coming in strong. And I love them. I love Mojo. I don't know who I'm going to go with for the rest of the game, though. I don't know if I can stand Poshel's dialogue because it is tough to read sometimes. It is really tough to get through. Everything else about Poshel is amazing, but the dialogue,
Sounds like you can't get that Poshel Pals shirt.
Oh, you're right. I'm not worthy of the Poshel Pal army.
Yeah, I've got, I think I have all of them that I can at this point. It's like Lena, Poshel, Kid, Guile, Mojo.
And you're using...
Oh, I mean, Guile and Kid for the Viper Manor stuff. I mean, after Viper Manor, there are more characters you can go get, so we'll see. We'll see how the roster expands then.
Yeah. What about you, Rebecca?
Kid... I'm so sad I missed Poshel. This is my buddy. I feel so much regret on that. Sure. Kid, Mojo, and Guile are who I have right now. And I am mainly using Surge, Kid, and Guile. I'm going to try to break myself of that because that's exactly the party that I used the first time I beat the game. And I love Guile with all my heart, but I feel like I'm missing just so much of the Chrono Cross spirit by just clinging to him so tightly. But also it's very weird because you only have a party of 3. You can't really get rid of Surge. I mean, I actually don't know if you can, but it feels weird to get rid of Surge.
Yeah.
And then it also feels weird to get rid of Kid, right? Like she's clearly a main character. Why would you get rid of her? And so that leaves you one spot to fit in any one of these 45 other weirdos.
If you've got Mojo, that's a black innate right there too. So you can like that's an easy swap. Get Guile out of there. Get the weird freak in.
Yep. Also,
our straw god.
Straw god who loves us.
I hear you. Like, Kid is so cool. She's almost so cool, I don't want to use her. She's such obviously a great choice. And I guess it does add to the Chrono Cross flavor to spend so much time with her. But yeah, I don't know. I think I'm always going to go for the underdogs. But if I'm being honest, like, I should go for the less sexy underdogs, like Poshel and Mojo, like they're out there, they're the freaks, they get your attention, but like, I should just choose Lena or just some people that are just wholly unremarkable. That would be the ultimate underdog party, really.
Can't wait for the next segment where we recruit so many more weirdos.
Oh my God. Not of weirdos yet. Hey, did anybody talk to that weird cat statue where you recruit Mojo and it just says, you received a sacred Lickery Loo from Lickery the cat. Not. And then like a tongue shoots out. Did you not do this, really?
Did you just this sounds like something you made up.
No.
What?
No, it really happens. There's a cat statue that licks you, and they call it a sacred Lickery Loo from Licky the cat. And then it says, not. It's a very cool 90s
so there's
joke.
A character that says Lickery Loo, and there's a character that says Scribbledy Doo?
That's right.
Okay. Everyone, in El Nido is having a very normal one.
Yes,
all the
Kyle,
time.
what don't you understand about this?
Ben, there are 2 statues, one on either side of that altar, and each one has some weird reaction to you.
Yeah, none are as bold as licking you like this one.
The
but
lick.
yeah, the lick is good.
There's some fun, like just general writing in this game that's all over the place. Like, I don't even remember if this is connected to anything, so I apologize if this is like leading towards something later. I just genuinely don't remember. There's like a barrel in Arnie that you examine it and it says it's just a barrel with quotes around it. And then in another world, it's a pot and it says it's just a jar or a pot or whatever it is, but it's in quotes. And I examined it multiple times. Like, I'm like, come on. Like, it's not just a barrel if it's in quotes. Like, you're kidding me, right? But I don't remember what that's about.
You just need to keep talking to it and you get an item from it.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah, like it's a Karsh chest situation. Classic Karsh chest.
Funny. Okay, well.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of stuff like that, right? Like a bunch of like weird little quirky, goofy things.
Totally.
There's an entire room in Viper Manor that I messed with for a while where there's a guard sitting there and he's like, hey, don't touch anything. It's a bunch of traps. But like the stuff that you're not supposed to touch is like there's a statue that's out of place, or there's like 4 shields on the wall and then a spot for a 5th shield and the other shield's over here.
Yeah.
And so obviously as an RPG gamer, the shield needs to go with the other shields. You got to push the statue into place. But when you do that, it's traps. It's traps all the way down.
Yes.
Like the guard was telling the truth. Why didn't you just listen to him? There was no reason to do this. There's no reward for doing this. It's just a bunch of traps.
And there's that weird moment too where there's like the silver pendant on the wall and you can go talk to it and it's like, hey, do you want to steal this pendant? And I think I chose no. And then Poshal's like, you shouldn't steal it. I agree, Serge. And then Mojo's like, you should steal it. And then I like automatically stole it. And then that's what launched me into the Pip and Lucia area. So it's like, okay, I guess there was no choice here. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, Joe.
There was one more little thing that I wanted to bring up. I know that some people you'd mentioned that some people were frustrated about like the sort of obtuse character recruitment and having to choose counterintuitive things, but like it's sort of tying back into Chrono Trigger also. Like I think when you run into Marl like by the bell. Yeah. And she asks if she can join your party and your option is like yes or no. And you choose no. And she's like, oh, you're so silly. So can I join your party? And like, you have to say yes to her in that game. Right. I like the fact that this almost seems Chrono Cross in a lot of ways feels like a direct response to that in a lot of ways, where it's like kid asking you to join your party and you can say no, but then she asks you again and again. And if you say no each time, eventually the game is like, fine, no kid for you right now.
Right.
You don't get her in your party.
Right. You get Lena and I hope you like it. Yeah.
Yeah. But then there are other points too, where if you sort of choose what you think is like the counterintuitive option, expecting the game to sort of have the gutter guards up to say like, nah, you can't do that. And instead, in a lot of those cases, the game's like, all right, then have it your way.
Yep, totally.
I really like that.
Also, I like in the characters, you can look at their little bio. And I love that Serge in his profile, it's labeled as the silent protagonist. I just love they're just like completely out with it. And I love that for Poshal, it says Wonder Dog! ! It's good stuff for everybody. Make sure to check this out.
Lots of personality.
Lots of personality.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. We're getting down there, everybody. We're talking about kind of the somber tone to kick this thing off, but I forgot I wrote down a couple of these quotes where the fisherman early on, he says, I guess the longer you live, the more you wonder about another person that you might have been. What the fisherman says at the beginning. It's like, some good deep thoughts. That's what this game's about, everybody. And then also, I forgot that there's a seaman by the dock, and he says, can you hear the cries of countless men swallowed by the sea? Another talk about how scary the sea is. It's like another thing that, now I understand why, because they're setting up very clearly that, the sea killed you. That's why you should be listening to these old men talking about how murderous it is at all the times.
Yeah. I guess like that first quote about thinking about another you. I was thinking about that a lot because I told you at the beginning that I first played this in I was like 19, 20, or very, very early 20s, somewhere in there. And I think it's like playing it then is like, oh yeah, very philosophical. Okay. But now I'm 31 and like looking at this now, like hearing all these people talk about, oh, what if there was another you? Like, what if your life had gone down a different track? I've now had enough experiences. Like, I'm very happy the person that I am right now. I wouldn't change any of the choices that I made. But sometimes it is it's a very different experience now at 31, going like, like there were like multiple very critical moments in my life where I could have gone in a completely different direction. And it is sort of interesting to sit there and think sometimes, like, what if? Like, what would I be doing right now? Who would I be? How would the world around me have been impacted by that? And that's, I mean, I guess that's sort of the thing that Chrono Cross is going to be getting at over the next several sessions. But yeah, I don't know. It's very fascinating.
I think that's really smart. Maybe that's why, it's hitting me harder. And it seems like a lot of people in the comments too. Because I mean, when I played this when I was 13, how many different branching paths did I really have at that point compared to now, where it's like, oh my God, this thing could have gone a million different directions. Kyle, do you have any bold predictions? No jokies. Do you have any real predictions of where you think the story's going? What's up with Lynx? What's up with Surge? All that good stuff?
I mean, not really. Like, I'm not far enough to have predictions.
Sure.
I mean, maybe Surge has the potential to be like lean villainous, or something like that. But like, I don't have predictions. Like, I just met Lynx. Like, I don't like, he's like he seems like the antagonist, and I don't even know if that's truly the case yet,
Right.
Yeah. There's also that weird gem that we sort of encountered very briefly at the end of Viper Manor, like the shiny guy in the middle of the room.
Right.
Like how much I'm trying to like separate what I know at this point in the game versus what I actually know about that. Like, what got any vibes on that gem?
No, 0 vibes.
That's fine.
That's the gem where they say, we're looking for the frozen flame, and this gem looks exactly like a frozen flame, and Kid says, nah, sorry, that's not the frozen flame.
Right,
like,
right.
I took that at face value and said, all right, let's go, Kid. You seem to know what you're talking about. You're very confident.
She's typically very smart. Yeah. Okay. Well, this is the last bit. I was looking into Masato Kato's work, his writing efforts in other games, and I guess he had other collaborations with Mitsuda, the composer. Joe, had you heard of either of these games? He apparently wrote these games, and Mitsuda did the soundtrack for these 2 DS RPGs. One's called Deep Labyrinth. Do you remember this? It looks like a first-person labyrinth game. Game Informer gave it a 4 out of 10.
Oh my! Oh no!
Yeah.
Who reviewed it? That might have been me.
It might have. I don't know. This is just the reviews archive, so there wasn't a name on it, I don't think.
Okay.
And then the other one is Sands of Destruction on DS that apparently Sega published. And this one, I guess, I think IGN gave it like a 7 or something. But
What's it called? Sands of what?
Sands of Destruction. I'd never heard of either of these, and that seems wild for like...
Deep Labyrinth, I super remember because it was an Atlas game. And, my wife would, at that point in time, would just buy every Atlas game because they were so collectible and they became so valuable so quickly. But we never played it, though.
Huh. Yeah, Sands of Destruction kind of looks cool. I kind of want to check it out.
The other one I don't remember.
If we're talking very briefly about Kato Matsuda collaborations, anyone here played Another Eden?
I started it. Yeah, we were actually promoting it on the podcast a while ago. Full disclaimer. I played like an hour and a half of it on Steam, and it was better than I thought it was going to be. But they had the Chrono Cross crossover, which I didn't start that at all, and I feel bad about it.
Yeah, I played this. I haven't played the crossover yet. Chrono crossover.
No.
Oh, that's really good. I think I made that pun multiple times in articles. Actually, like a loser.
Yeah, everyone does.
I played it when it came out on mobile, and I played like decently far in it. It's quite good. I mean, I think you have to be like open to mobile games and their particular intricacies, but I really enjoyed it. And it is, if you like subtle but not so subtle Chrono Trigger references, it's very good for that. Also, there's a cat involved, and as we've seen in Chrono Cross and Chrono Trigger, this team loves cats.
They are
cats
all
everywhere.
about cats. Yep,
Love
big time.
cats.
Also, there is in the beginning of Another Eden, there's also a Mojo reference. So if you're a huge Mojo fan, I think there's a straw guy in one of the houses. Yeah. I should go and check out that Chrono Cross thing.
It's really nice. Great soundtrack too. Matsuda does great work.
Yeah. All right, everybody. That's it. Thank you so much for submitting your wonderful, insightful comments over on Patreon. If you've watched this far, thank you for being here. If you enjoy this type of content, if you enjoy game club formats and people celebrating all things Chrono Cross by creating the best, most thorough discussion about it on the internet. We would appreciate your support over on Patreon, and you can unlock future podcast versions of The Deepest Dive. It's in your favorite podcast app, too. You don't have to go to, like, the browser version on Patreon or some gross stuff like that. Like, really, it can be right on your phone, right next to the other podcasts you listen to. And you'd help support independent games media at the same time. Rebecca Valentine, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
Oh, this is great. Thank you all.
Yeah. If people want to follow you and your work, where should they go?
You can find my work at IGN.com pretty regularly because I work there. And you can find me on Twitter at DuckValentine.
Awesome. Great. And congratulations on winning. I'm looking in here. Every award in games journalism is what my notes say. Kicking ass over there, my God.
Thank you.
Joe Juba, thank you for being here, dude.
Yeah, thank you.
Kyle, thank you for going on this trip. Genuinely, I know you were the most apprehensive about this, so we appreciate you tagging along, dude.
Yeah, I mean, not nothing. I wasn't. It's not like it's like ugh, screw Chrono Cross. It's just like, okay, I gotta, this. My gaming time will be devoted to a PS1 RPG that I haven't played before, which might be hard, but so far it has not been hard.
I am really looking forward to playing more of this thing. It's such a good groove to go in, and I'm excited to talk about the rest of it.
The first quarter of it flew by. It went by much faster than I expected it to, and I'm wondering if this next section is going to as well. But
I remember
the third section is going to be the long one.
I think so, yeah.
And I remember certain things being annoying later on in the game, and I'm curious to see how that holds up. But hey,
there's a fight I'm scared of. But
yes. Hey, next section. This is 4 big chunks, everybody. So for the next section, we're going to be collecting your comments on April 18th about the next chunk of this game. And again, that's over on Patreon, patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. And so the stopping point. All right. This needs to be nice and cagey. The stopping point is at the quote unquote big change. Is that the best way to put it? When the big change happens, that's the stopping point. And hopefully you should know, well, this is certainly different. That's your stopping point. Kyle, how do you feel about that? Does that make sense?
Nope.
Okay.
I feel like when it happens, if you don't understand what it means, I don't know how to help you.
Right.
Yeah. Right. I imagine like this, like you said, there'll probably be a moment where it's like, maybe this is where you swapped discs in the original version or something. I don't know, but I'm sure I'll recognize it.
Thinking about it as swapping discs is certainly an interesting allegory.
Interesting. Yeah. There we go. Thank you so much for going on this journey, everybody. We look forward to reading your comments in the future. And hey, we appreciate it. And we'll see you next time, next week, that is, for The Deepest Dive. Bye, everybody. Did you know that you can more than double the amount of podcasts from MinnMax every single week by supporting us at the $5 tier on Patreon? You don't have to listen through the browser or anything dumb like that. You'll get access to a private RSS feed if you support us on Patreon. You put it in your favorite podcast app, and then bam, you can listen to our weekly bonus podcast Party Chat, the podcast versions of The Deepest Dives, MinnMax interviews, Max spoilers, and you get the MinnMax Show podcast a day earlier than every